a professor at MIT, 23-time serial entrepreneur. Am I missing one or
No,
two?
23. Same number of genes that you have.
Exactly. So professor, investor, and serial entrepreneur. So we're here for amazing hot takes from him on AI. And with Mali, who leads the corporate venture arm of Aramco, leading over $7 billion of investments across different technologies and 5 different funds. So we're going to make it fast, interesting, fun, and hopefully full of hot takes.
All right, let's
go.
go.
Let's start with the two of you. Big question and a complicated one, but what is the most underhyped and overhyped technology that you see in 2025? Dave.
We'll start with overhyped. The AI that is for companionship, generates videos, super graphical, super compelling, but the chip supply is so constrained and the compute supply is so constrained that it's unlikely that that'll get delivered to consumers. So people are getting super excited when they build a really cool Sora video and then they can't actually get more than 3 minutes of footage squeezed out of it. So there's a massive compute shortage. Underhyped, AI self-improvement is in full throttle right now. So AI that writes code that improves the AI's own code is running full bore, and the big labs have started diverting over half their compute back into internal self-improvement, and they're doing it very quietly and very secretively. And that is massively underappreciated because it's going to create this exponential rate of technological improvement. So the capabilities you'll see a year and 2 years from today are far more mind-blowing than people even anticipate because of that self-improvement cycle.
Okay, that's good. Maddie?
Okay, so I think overhyped probably hydrogen on the sustainability front. I think the cost is still quite prohibitive, specifically blue and green hydrogen. On the kind of the more digital space, and if there's anyone here that's in quantum, I'm sorry, but I think there's still quite a bit of hype in quantum, even after the public and private sector invested more than $55 billion in the space. It's still a very promising technology, but I think we still have some time until it becomes as accurate and that the fidelity is at par with some of what we get with the classical computers. Underhyped, I think edge computing, very critical. There's still challenges with orchestration, connectivity, but I think Starlink and some of these satellite capabilities now, I think is going to help a lot in that space.
And as investors, are you participating in what you both describe as the underhyped and overhyped technologies? So you are invested in quantum computing, and are you invested in companionship?
Well, we're not in quantum, but we are looking at the space, but we haven't executed anything in quantum yet.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, all over the place. We have an investment in a company, Soul, X-O-U-L, that's just skyrocketing. It's AI companionship. We have an investment in Liquid AI. Ramin Hassani is here. He's a god of technologies. Just this pure foundation model operates at insane speeds, massively underappreciated the impact, but Samsung and AMD know all about it, and so, but he talks about it here. So yeah, we have deals and everything.
Awesome. Maddie, on hydrogen versus ammonia or any other, or something else, which is the next wave of energy transition?
Well, maybe it allows me to explain why I think hydrogen is overhyped. So I think, one, the cost is still not there. The landed cost where the customers need it, because the technology has still not gotten us at par with what we call gray hydrogen, which is available hydrogen today without sequestering the carbon. But ammonia has advantages. It's easier to ship as a liquid, so the transportation cost is lower versus hydrogen, which is predominantly a gas. Compressing it is very expensive. So I think today they're not in the money, especially I'm talking about the clean ones. Eventually they will be as technology progresses. An interesting area in the space of hydrogen is geological hydrogen, which is hydrogen you can find underground. Now it's scarce, distributed, but there are companies and startups that are looking for geological hydrogen. If we can find these resources in an abundant manner at scale, I think it becomes a very competitive way of accessing hydrogen.
Wow.
Yeah.
AI in operations, is it a hype or is it really unlocking productivity gains for you guys?
Look, everything in AI has some sort of hype, but really in energy and operations, we see the value. And you can see it with grid operators, in forecasting demand, forecasting outages, better distributing loads. In Aramco, our mother company, AI has been a tremendous efficiency gain. Our CEO talks about $4 billion in realized value from deploying in-house technologies. 60% of these technologies come from AI.
Okay.
It allows us to better place wells, better optimize the subsurface to decide, where we drill, how we extract the reserves, and in our refining chemical facilities, how to better optimize operations and our yields.
This is a much, much bigger deal than most people appreciate. And the reason why is because most of the AI innovators are like 21, 22, 23 years old. They know how to write codes, so they use AI to write code. They've never managed people before.
Exactly.
And they don't realize that AI is actually far better as a management and planning tool than it is even as a coding tool. And so we have, within the companies that I founded that you mentioned, we have about 1,000 employees in our controlled companies. And they do account reconciliation, they do customer support, they do coding, they do the whole range. We do some construction. And so we have a lab where we can try AI management across virtually all forms of human endeavor. And so Alex Wisner-Gross from the Moonshots podcast is using AI to generate plans at the rate of 30, 40 plans a week. And we're deploying them against that labor pool in a test program right now. And it is so insanely good compared to any prior method of management.
Yeah, I fully agree. I mean, I'm not even talking about generative AI. It's just basic AI algorithms.
Yep.
We use them to optimize our shipping business, to decide where to dock depending on weather conditions, fuel availability, dock opening or closure. And we save a lot of money versus doing it on spreadsheets and trying to do this, manually.
Yeah.
So you touched a little bit on that, which is the project management and people management that AI can bring.
Yeah.
What else do you think is the next huge disruption that AI is going to have in the next 12 months?
Well, I think AI that solves science and also medicine is imminent. And that's another thing that, AI right now is just plowing through math. And, Alex is always saying AI will very soon solve math. And I'm like, isn't there infinite math? He's like, well, no, not really. There are mathematical problems that have been sitting there for decades, and the AI is just methodically now, at huge scale, like the equivalent of 1 billion mathematicians, grinding through these problems. And after it's done with math, we move to physics, and then a little harder will be medicine. But that cycle has begun now, and I mean, people, if it starts telling you physics solutions, new ways to, chemical reactions that you never would have thought of, the rate of innovation could just be mind-blowing. It could be this exponential change that is very hard to anticipate the magnitude.
So you said math problems have a finite amount that can be solved. Is there other field where you see that there's like a finite number of things that AI can just solve?
The self-improvement effect makes it effectively unbounded and very, very hard to predict. So most of my career, I'm used to kind of looking 3 to 5 years into the future, trying to predict what will come down the pike and then invest today. Very hard to see more than 1 or 2 years into the future now because of that same iterative effect. But by the same token, the returns are the highest I've ever seen by far. I've never seen anything like this window since the internet explosion in 97, 98, 99. But this is actually orders of magnitude bigger than even that. So hard to predict the future, but all boats are rising with the tide.
And the thing you were mentioning yesterday in a panel, which I thought it was interesting, is highest returns, but only like a few amount of people are investing in the space, and it's not really being given the possibility for everybody to access it. How do you see that potential wealth gap that it's created?
It's funny. It's crazy talent constrained. I had Sam Altman at MIT, and 2,000 people came out to see Sam Altman. It's been incredible. But we agreed in that interview there are about 10,000 core AI researchers in the world, and they're going to have about $20 trillion of impact. So each one of those people is a $2 billion impact. And that's why they're getting these $1 billion signing bonuses from Meta and OpenAI.
Yeah.
It's just crazy warfare for that very rare talent. But that's creating an enormous wealth gap. And so now if you go to OpenAI headquarters in San Fran, they're picketers, they have security now chasing them away, but the picketers out in front. And I don't think anyone in that community anticipated the level of attention.
No.
Yeah, no, this is like, politician level, president level global attention that Sam and Demis and these guys are getting. They were not mentally or physically prepared for that rate of climb in the news.
Absolutely. Back to you, Maddie.
Yeah.
On supply chain resilience, what mineral or material shortage is flying under the radar?
So I think people typically talk about lithium for EVs and copper, and all of these are, I think, important. I think so. When I was looking this up, there's actually some material that could have massive GDP impact if you had a disruption in, So you have niobium.
Nubium?
Niobium, which is predominantly comes out of Brazil,
Okay.
used in high-strength steel and in some of these superconductor material. It could have a $10 billion impact on U.S. GDP if you get a disruption to that, to that chain. Rhodium also used in catalyst converters.
Where does it mainly come from?
It mainly comes from South Africa.
Okay.
$64 billion worth of impact on U.S. GDP. So these are less known, but because the source of these supplies are almost one country, I think a disruption in these areas could be really impactful.
And geopolitics is going to play a big role there. Like, how do you see what's happening in geopolitics today impacting?
Look, we're a global investor headquartered in the east coast of Saudi. We invest in the U.S. And Europe and China. We actually think for tech, the geopolitics are negative, and for the world. These barriers create immense regulatory and legal churn for us as global investors, trying not to get in trouble. I think for the world, in certain areas, I can understand the logic, maybe certain AI chips where there's military applications. But in climate tech, for instance, I don't understand the reason to have barriers in that space, given that we're trying to solve one global problem. So I think the strength of the world we've lived in till today, and especially in the last 40, 50 years, has been because top talent was able to freely move, especially in countries like the US and Europe, in and out, and capital. And when you start constraining these things, I think it starts changing the outcomes, the positive outcomes we've seen, up to date, right?
David, your take in geopolitics and how it's impacting investing.
It's the weirdest time right now because, Liputan was here yesterday, and he's turned Intel into this, juggernaut that we were talking about backstage. But, Donald Trump tweeted, he's got to go, he's got investments in China, he can't stay. It's like, okay, I've seen this story before. You show up in the White House, you explain your mission, and you come out with a 10% investment, like completely
100%.
invert. So it's very odd that the White House is operating as a business and not as a, it's still a government, but it's a business. It's negotiating now, which is a very strange and bad precedent, but the deals are good and the coordination is good. So it's a very weird time.
To close, in the past 2 days, what have you learned, either in a panel or in a conversation that you had that has blown your mind that you didn't know before or that you didn't think of it before? Maddie, let's start with you and then we close with David.
Well, maybe two things. One, I think, so this is my third FII. I think now I'm really, really seeing the value of coming back and networking with peers and startups and stuff. So that's one. Someone showed me yesterday this cool little thing, and he asked me to guess what it was. I couldn't figure it out. I wish I brought it with me, but it is actually a pill that you swallow.
Oh, yeah.
That works like an endoscopy.
Yeah.
And it avoids all the pain that we know of that you ever need to do an endoscopy. I thought that was very cool. Hopefully one day it happens, so I'm delaying my decision to go to endoscopy until that
pill exists.
Yeah.
Good call. I'm amazed the degree to which sovereign wealth is going to drive AI. I'm used to the venture world driving all innovation, but the data center build out goes way beyond the scale of venture funds. And so it's transitioned very quickly into sovereign funds. And there are only a handful of fast-moving, hard-thinking sovereign funds out there. But the amount of capital going into the data center business is so big. It's actually very surprising how fast.
Maybe one thought,
of course,
which builds on the data center. I think the importance of energy and the whole AI, future cannot be underestimated.
Yep.
And I think, again, the kingdom, this part of the world, has abundant solar, wind energy, and also the conventional oil and gas that I think will play a pivotal role.
And as you mentioned, that is basically the constraint on what comes next, right? And that's the only constraint to innovation at this point.
What's incredible to me is how coordinated the plan is here in Saudi, because it's basically, we have the energy today, bring the data centers, and then if fusion comes online in 2030, 2031, the data centers will be here. And so that'll be sticky. It's brilliant. It actually
Yeah,
makes sense.
I think Saudi 2030 is going to be mind blowing on what we see and how you guys are preparing for it.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, all of you, for joining.
Thank
David,
you.
Maddie, thank you.
Thanks. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
All right, good morning. Thanks to you who are here to listen to what is going to be a very fun and energetic and enlightening conversation. Antoine, Bryce, and Amjad, thanks for joining me to talk about, we're gonna talk about how we're using tools and automation to really redefine and democratize coding. I'm a word guy, unlike you engineers. So I pay really close attention to when Merriam-Webster puts new words into the dictionary. And I remember vividly earlier this year when they decided to put add vibe coding as a slang and trending term. And I want to start with you, Antoine, as we think about these tools that are changing the way we code. You said recently, in AI, advantage belongs to those who build fast, ship fast, and learn even faster. When you think about AI-assisted coding, give us the bull case. You can criticize it later, but right now talk about how this is helping build, ship, and learn more quickly.
Yeah, so, first of all, I don't like the vibe coding vernacular because honestly, it's not about it. It sounds like a gimmick, but it's not a gimmick, it's a revolution. And let me explain why. So first of all, there's massive demand for software. Every company is becoming a software company. And there's not enough supply of developers. So that's number one. Number two, remember transformers, which the foundation of Gen AI is transformers, the architecture. This was built for translation. Coding is a form of language. And so with transformers, what you're able to do is to go from idea to execution, to product to business much, much quicker, to the point of being fast, right? And then third, productivity. The real state here is that developers on average spend 30 to 50% of their time debugging.
Yeah.
They spend 20 to 40% of their time in refactoring, migration, boilerplate writing. And so with vibe coding, again, I don't like the term,
Yeah.
you can get rid of this. It's a 2x to 10x increase in productivity, which means you go much faster, right? And so what does it mean? It means at the end of the day, instead of having about 50 million developers, that's kind of the numbers worldwide,
Right.
50 million developers, you get to hundreds of millions of developers because every domain expert becomes a developer.
Let's come back to that. Amjad, I want to come to you next. At Replit, you talk about building tools that make coding more fun, approachable, and social. And you've said many times, You want to bring the next billion coders online. I want to hear, what is the evidence that we're seeing people who would have never coded start to use tools like yours to go from 50 million to getting on that path to 1 billion?
Actually, I just heard this story on this visit. The Ministry of IT here and Communication ran like a small entrepreneurship program for high schoolers, and they taught them how to code with Replit. And one of the kids built a college prep app, and during the program was able to monetize it and then spin it out into a company and then raised funds on it. That's like a 14, 15-year-old kid. This is the first time they sit in front of any kind of coding environment. We hear this story all the time, like kids, professionals, all sorts of people that otherwise have no business coding. We see it in the enterprise as well. We have customers that drove tens of millions of dollars in top line revenue because someone who is on the ground floor of the business understands the business requirements, was able to vibe code something that otherwise would have required a team of engineers to do it. So there are plenty of evidence that this revolution is happening. And I would really recommend everyone here to go to the App Store, download Replit, and within 10 minutes you can put in a prompt, and seeing is believing. Like, you don't really have to believe it. You could just go and do it. Finally, I think that we're at a point in technology where the constraint on entrepreneurship and creating businesses is no longer the code. It is now the ideas, the ambition. And the reason I'm here in this region, the reason I'm traveling more, is because previously Silicon Valley had sort of the monopoly on creating technology companies. But now, because people understand that there are things in their culture, in their location that's quite specific, they understand their communities, they know how to build businesses to service their local communities. And tools like Replit and others allows them to do that without being dependent on having really high-skilled developers.
Totally. I want to come back to this region and the really ambitious plans for getting more people coding and developing a hub here in Riyadh. Bryce, I want to bring you into the conversation. You are the founding go-to-market engineer at Cognition AI. What is a go-to-market engineer? And more importantly, talk about Cognition's role in all of this. Specifically, you've created an autonomous coding assistant. You call it Devin?
Devin, that's right.
And how autonomous is Devin?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, Devin's a fun name. I think everyone always comments on why we give it a human name, and we don't normally talk about why, but the reason is because developers are deving, and it's like Devin. Anyway, so so we've created Devin. It's essentially the world's first autonomous software engineer. My role there on GTM is, as you can imagine, it's a very technical product under the hood, and so we have in all of our go-to-market functions pretty technical folks. So my background's in engineering, but that's kind of how I ended up at Cognition. Specifically, we work primarily with enterprises, and that's really our main focus, is how do we work on these large enterprise-scale code bases and provide the ability to ship new production-ready code. So for Devin, I think there's really been a paradigm shift over the past couple of, maybe year. Everything's moving so quickly, but we really owe a lot to GitHub Copilot as I think the first real pioneer in this space, introducing AI to the software development ecosystem at all. Devin is sort of this next paradigm where it's actually a fundamentally asynchronous experience. What that means is that we're actually getting our tasks and we're delegating it to a Devin that's going to go run in the background. It's going to go write the code for us. It's going to go test it. It's going to open a pull request. All the things that you might expect a software engineer to do. And then we're just going to take advantage of that at the end of the day. So there is a human there who is orchestrating those Devins, and almost I see it as like the individual engineer becomes a manager of a fleet or an army of little Devins running and all doing their various different tasks. But Devin is the #1 contributor to Devin, right? So it's the #1 programmer that's adding code to itself. So when you look at the front end, when you look at actually using the tool, most of it has been built by Devin. So we're sort of starting to get to this escape velocity on how we build our tools ourselves. The other funny thing I'll add is when we think about building the company with AI, you kind of get these emergent properties when you build an engineering agent. We give it a browser, we give it the ability to look things up. So we actually order our Amazon packages and our DoorDash deliveries on Devin as well. So you kind of get these emergent properties as well from it.
I like this concept for both of you, Amjad and Bryce, of making coders, making our businesses, making ourselves more productive, more efficient. How do you ensure that your tools aren't making mistakes that cancel out some of these productivity gains? What are the safeguards that you have to build in? Start with you, Amjad.
Yeah, so there are a few things. One, when you go to Replit, we create a sandbox environment for you. So you have an isolated environment with a cloud computer, with a database, with everything in there that is fully transactional, meaning any edit, any change that the agent makes on the environment, you can reverse it with one click. If the agent did something wrong or you don't like, you can reverse it with one click. You can develop your app. Once you're ready to publish it, say to users, to your company internally, it's one click, you publish it. We figure out the difference between your development environment, your database migrations, and all of that, and then we put them in the cloud. That's all happening automatically. So the vibe coder, the developer that's sitting in front of the agent, can have complete security in terms of, I'm not going to be able to do anything that really destroys my production application. So that's one, the sandboxing. Two, the way we built Replit Agent is, unlike with Cognition's users, our users are not always developers. We have reporters, we have artists, we have VCs and finance people. Everyone, like I can't name a single role on the planet that we haven't seen use Replit. Actually, yesterday I saw a band that was dissatisfied with how much Spotify makes it harder to publish their music. They built their own app, their own distribution, with their own payment gateway to kind of own how they publish their music. And so everyone can use it. And because of that, we had to build guardrails on top of it. So actually, when you use Replit Agent, Agent 3 came out a couple of months ago. It is a multi-agent system. So you have an agent that writes the code, and then you have another agent that we call the architect that reviews the code and then sends feedback to the coder so that it edits it. So you can see actually we publish their thoughts and their conversation. It's really fascinating to see them work with each other. And then there's a third agent that spins up a browser or writes unit tests, tests the application, and then goes back to the coder, goes back to the architect, and that loop happens however number of times in order to make sure the application is good and ready for production. Once you hit deploy, we also run security tests. So we go look at the code, we analyze all the code, and then we run state-of-the-art security tests. And finally, on the enterprise side, we also have privacy by default. So the IT admin can set up their access control lists, and when you publish an app, you're behind a single sign-on inside an organization. No one else will be able to see that. So security is always, and safety is always about how many layers you're adding, and we'll continue to add more layers to kind of to make developers feel secure.
Bryce, what are your safeguards?
Yeah, I like this framing of having sort of multiple layers. And for us, given that we have such a priority and a focus on enterprise, we have to answer these questions before we can even start to work with
your businesses won't adopt.
That's right.
If you don't give them assurances like that.
That's right. And so one of the I think it comes down to something actually pretty simple, which is that a lot of these enterprises have spent years developing their own internal guardrails for engineering, right? So, if you're an engineer at, say, Goldman Sachs, right? If you want to push code, you have to make a pull request, you have to get that reviewed by a peer, you have to run a suite of automatic tests on it. There's a whole life cycle, essentially, that executes. And with Devin, very conveniently, we can just adopt those rails and we can just sit on top of those rails. So I can't tell you
Integrate right with Goldman's
exactly.
already existing systems.
Exactly. So yeah, I can't tell you how many times I've had security engineers or infra engineers come to me and say, hey, we have this hair on fire disaster. What do we do here with Devon? We've never seen anything like this before. And the answer is just, well, what do you do with your engineers? What's the thing that you make your engineers go through for this? And then we just give Devon the exact same requirements, and then we're sort of done and dusted there.
Antoine, as a journalist, I realize journalism is very different from coding, but there are some important parallels. I want new journalists to do the grunt work. I don't want them to skip steps. There are certain things you learn as a cub journal, what we used to call a cub journalist, that you just cannot replicate if somehow you could skip a bunch of steps. So what are some downsides of making the basics of coding too easy?
Yeah, it's...
If any.
No, obviously, so first of all, we're in this first inning, right? So it remains to be seen as to the potential negative impact of vibe coding on the skill set of people. And so intuitively, when you're a developer, what you're doing is at build time, you're taking a problem, you're architecting a solution in your head, and then you execute on it. So you have to imagine how it's going to run at runtime. And then you get a feedback from you do it, and then this feedback loop is there, and it's feedback loop to you, right? The biggest issue here, obviously, when you start to delegate, is that that feedback loop doesn't come to you, it comes to the machine.
Yeah.
And so, there's two issues there. One is you do not have a solid understanding of the realm of possibilities, how you can go beyond, what is the next architecture, how can you make it more elegant, faster, better. And so as a developer, you lose that feedback loop, and that's potentially an issue. The other issue is if you're a domain expert, right, and you used to actually rely on developers to tell you this is possible, this is not possible, now you don't have that interface anymore. And I think what's going to be, very important for these tools going forward is to articulate that feedback to the domain expert. This is what if I was trying to do this instead, right? This functionality here is great, but what about the next one?
Right.
And today those tools don't really do this. They may at some point, and if they do, it'd be very interesting because then you actually have, as a domain expert, you have your developer that's not just working on your stuff, but also giving you feedback on what else you could do with this, right? So hopefully on a roadmap.
Amjad, I want to spend a minute talking about, as someone who is out there looking for the best talent, you are going up against some really big global players that have a huge arsenal, including equity, that they can throw at new talent. We saw examples of this last summer with Meta. I don't have to go give you the whole list, but it got brutal. And the numbers were astronomical. How do you compete in an environment like that? What's your message to would-be employees who can say, hey man, Meta and Alphabet, they got a lot more firepower?
We haven't lost a single engineer to any of those. And I think people join companies not just for the financial outcome, but also for the mission.
Yeah.
And a lot of people who join Replit are excited about the stories that I was just telling earlier. Empowerment is a core thing. And when we think about a lot of the bigger players, there's an aspect of what they do that is a bit predatory, where it's about sucking people's time more into frivolous things. It's about generating slop on the internet, and so a lot of them do really great work, but at the same time, it's not entirely positive. It's not 100% positive. It's really hard to come up with something negative about what we're doing at Replit. It's really fundamentally about empowerment. Yeah. And so that's one thing. The other thing on the upside, Replic's valuation is quite modest, and that's intentional relative to a revenue. We could have raised a lot higher valuation, but we want people joining to feel that the valuation is real. There's like tremendous upside from here, and so when we were competing on candidates, a lot of times they go with the lower comp because they feel the equity has. When you're joining a startup, you're joining for the upside. You're not necessarily just joining for the current comp. When you're joining a bigger company, you're joining for the liquid comp. So the kind of person that joins Replit is more future, long-term oriented, and that's how we like it. We think that's a positive thing, right? They may be like a little earlier in their career, but they're willing to work hard and they want to make this company successful, and they know they're going to be successful in the process.
Bryce, your company recently made an important acquisition, Windsurf. Can you talk a little bit about how important that business is, how it complements what you're doing? And I also am curious to get your sense of whether you expect to see more consolidation as competition, assuming you agree with my thesis that competition is going to heat up in your space.
Yeah, I think it will. I'll just briefly describe, for those that don't know, Windsurf is essentially an AI-powered IDE, which essentially means that when your hands are on the keyboard, when you're developing, it's giving you, autocomplete suggestions. It's giving you essentially all the optimizations that we give to human-in-the-loop developers. And so again, it's a fundamentally different experience from the Devon experience that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
And really, the idea there is to complement all parts of where you might expect human developers to run into, right? So you have certain tasks for which you actually want the human in the loop. You want them developing, and then you'll have other tasks where maybe you're doing a very large-scale migration, and you want 1,000 Devons all in the background running around doing their various different things. And so that's really how Windsurf fits into the overall story of Devon, or of Cognition, rather. I think from a slightly macro perspective, our objective isn't just to build an AI software engineer. Our objective isn't to build an AI-powered editor. I think for all of us, really the question is answering, what does the future of software engineering look like? And as Antoine mentioned, that's not just coding. Coding is around 30-40% of a developer's time. You're doing a lot of writing product specs. You're doing a lot of planning, analysis. You're doing a lot of testing.
Yes.
And that's just the reality in enterprise. That's a lot of what we have to do. And so that's really the question that we're answering, and how all of these pieces fit together around this problem of software engineering.
Is there a scenario where you can kind of either bolt on or build those various other...
This is what we've been doing.
Okay.
Again, as Anton was mentioning, I think a lot of the acceleration of delivery, number one,
Yeah.
seeing. So some enterprises are pushing hundreds of PRs every single day with Devon. And as you can imagine, the burden starts to shift more towards PR review, for example, like reviewing the code that's coming in. And so, for us, the big focus is, okay, how do we optimize that slice of the life cycle, right? And then once we solve that, the bottleneck will emerge maybe towards planning, and then we'll solve that slice, right? And then over time, you sort of get this hyper-optimized end-to-end life cycle, right? And so to your question on consolidation, we'll see. I mean, it's hard to say. I think the reality is that all of the tools in this industry and all the companies will do very well. I think we've seen valuations really increase a lot over the last 6, 12, 24 months. But the reality is that there's going to be a lot of AI. There's going to be a ton of AI, and I think everyone will do well, but we'll see how the market shakes out there.
Antoine, as an investor, I want to hear about your thesis, and specifically around the late 2022 with the release of a particular chatbot. I saw a lot of venture capital firms, I'm not going to name names, pivoting toward saying, we love everything that has crypto associated with it, to saying, we love everything that has AI associated with it. And it was really striking for some of us outside looking in. Talk about your investment thesis briefly, and whether and to what extent it has changed in light of the sort of world's attention on generative AI.
Yeah. I mean, maybe what's a little different about ourselves is that before being investors, we actually used to build companies. So we built a number of them. We built what became Siri, obviously part of Apple. And we've been in the space of AI enablement and AI building for 25 years more, in fact. And so when I started AIC in 2018, none of this hype existed. But for me, the belief was that as the world begins to move from human-based intelligence, right? Everything in this room, our languages, the chairs, everything that you see is a product of human intelligence. But as machines begin to take a bit and then more say in workflows, in products and services, then everything begins to become machine-based intelligence. And our thesis was, let's educate the world about what it means to invest in machine intelligence as opposed to human intelligence, which humans have done for centuries. But what does it mean to invest in machine-based intelligence? So that's back in 2018, 2019. Fast forward to 22, you mentioned the release of certain chat. We're very fortunate to invest in OpenAI just right when they released ChatGPT.
Phew.
And but why is that different, right?
Yeah.
It's different because it begins to reduce the amount of friction that it takes for people to build and deploy AI. It's still friction-full, okay? That's why you don't see every single large corporate embracing it fully and making money out of it. It's still not friction-free, but it's every day that passes, it becomes a little less friction-full. Give you an example, because everybody's talking about investments. Nobody talks about revenue. In our portfolio, we've got a company called Hicksfield that went from 0 to $50 million in ARR in less than 6 months. This is the first half of this year. I can't tell you the number today, but the number today is much higher than $50 million. These guys are sending checks to OpenAI, big checks every day. And then you understand why OpenAI is making 12, 13, 14, $15 billion of revenue. And that's, again, it's just the very beginning. And so that's the thesis, right? It used to be very hard to build AI. It's becoming easier.
I want to come back to Amjad about this because we talk about the democratization of coding and developing, not just coding, but developing businesses. I find that very compelling, but I also see a world in which there is a great concentration of valuations. You just mentioned writing big checks to OpenAI. There's a concentration in terms of who's making the chips that are needed to drive AI. So isn't there a little bit of an inherent contradiction between those two? Or please explain to me why I'm wrong.
Well, I think the story of the internet is there's always two sides. Think about YouTube. YouTube created thousands, perhaps tens of thousands, if not more, of millionaires across the world. There's this 8-year-old kid in India that's a millionaire making videos, right? And so in many ways, YouTube is a decentralizing force. Previously, you needed a Hollywood studio to have a media operation, and now anyone can do it, and anyone can make money from it, right? So on the other hand, YouTube, I don't know how you value it, but perhaps it's like $500 billion company, if not more. And so, with any sort of form of decentralization, there's potentially centralization as well. Bitcoin, the ultimate decentralized currency. Michael Saylor now owns how many percentage of Bitcoin? And so there's always two sides of the same coin. Ultimately, I think that it's still a positive force in the world to create more opportunities. That being said, I think with AI, the problem becomes a little more acute because although something like YouTube has some editorial control over the platform, something like OpenAI has very, very strong and implicit editorial control over over how the AI behaves. You've seen stories about kids being impressionable by the AI. There was a conclave yesterday with ministers that I was part of and heads of state, and they're thinking about sovereign AI. They're thinking about how they can encode their values. As part of our deal with Humane, we did this deal. Humane is the Saudi national AI company. They want sovereignty. They want the data to stay here. So we're replicating all of Replic's infrastructure on Saudi soil. We'll be following local regulations. And then there's this emergence of sovereign AI as well. So they have an AI that they're working on here. And we want Replit to be a layer on top of that as well. So you can program these AIs. And so this is taking on a much more importance than say Web 2.0. So I agree with you.
It sounds like you're a believer in the concept of sovereign AI.
Yeah.
What gives you faith in a particular region, not necessarily this region, but any region, to really kind of create all of the ingredients without that? At some point, you have to cross region. You've got to cross oceans when it comes to acquisition of at least part of the stack.
The really interesting thing about this AI revolution is that it commoditizes at insane speed. When OpenAI came up with the reasoning model in September 2024, DeepSeek followed suit in December 2024. It's like the delta between a fundamental new breakthrough in AI and that being replicable and also open source is about 2 to 3 months. So actually, unlike a lot of other technological sort of revolutions, AI, something about AI that makes it easy for these innovations to kind of filter through and let anyone use it. And there's also the emergence of these companies that are starting up with the explicit goal of providing sovereign AI. So, I'm quite optimistic about this.
In the last couple minutes, I want to shift gears and move into a little bit of a speed round and give you an opportunity to debunk some myths. Agree or disagree? I'm going to start with you, Bryce. Coding assistants are going to put developers, software engineers out of work. Agree or disagree?
Yeah, I think we often hear this. For us, the main goal is actually to upskill folks and have them, as I said before, become managers of a series of different agents that all go and work on their behalf. So, to disagree from...
Hard disagree. Antoine?
It's going to put software engineers without coding assistants out of work.
I'm Judd.
I like that.
I think I know where you stand, but...
Well, I think it depends on the segment. I think specialists really have job security, but if you're sort of like a full stack engineer, I think that at least your salaries will take a hit because there's going to be a lot more developers coming online.
Yeah. Last quick round. We're in an AI bubble, and valuations are far outstripping the ability of businesses to monetize the product. Stay on you.
Disagree, at least for us, and even for the bigger companies. You look. I mean, everyone talks about the AI bubble and infrastructure. Every time a data center comes online, it's immediately profitable. They're printing money, so I don't think we're nearly in a bubble. You look at the valuations, and you compare the .com bubble where companies were at 100 to 200 earnings multiple. I mean, we're nowhere near that, so it doesn't feel like we're in a bubble.
Bryce?
I would echo a lot of that. I think for us, these enterprises care a lot about ROI. It's all about ROI at the end of the day. There's been a lot of emphasis on how do we even measure these things to begin with. And so when we look at that ROI, I think it's pretty comfortable to say that.
Antoine, yes, no?
No, it's AI is a business of intelligence, and so this world is based on human intelligence. Multiply this by 10, 100, a million. What does it become?
That's a great note to end on. Thank you all for being here, and thank you all,
Thank you.
my panelists.
Good job. Nice to meet you.
Allocation.
Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah. All right. Cool. All right. See you, man. Take care.
This has changed, and it changed because of several reasons. The first one is COVID. With COVID, marketing lost a lot of its influence in large companies because the voice of the customer went from marketing, direct interactions with customers, to product, digital interactions with customers. Then, with the end of the zero interest rate period, the finance organization lost a lot of its influence because with high interest rates, everything goes up, so everything looks great, but everything is beta. And finally, with the rise of AI and the platform shift associated with it, engineering lost a lot of its influence because now even non-coders are able to create products and ship software without a technical background. The winner in this is the product organization because they are the ones responsible for creating business value out of technology. And a few numbers to back this up, which you see here, the number of chief product officers appointed by Fortune 1000 has increased 10x in the last 4 years, from 3 or 4% in 2020 to 40% in 2025, and on track to hit 70% by 2027. And then the performance of companies with a chief product officer is significantly higher than those without a chief product officer, in fact, 35% higher. So when we look at private markets and venture capital in particular, we see the same trend, where before COVID, there were many more IPOs, and so you could generate outsized returns just with IPOs. But today, with much fewer IPOs, it is clear that secondaries cannot make up for the lack of performance or the lack of IPOs. And so you really need to create what we call a CPO alpha effect to generate outperformance and outsized returns in venture capital. But spotting product innovation is really tricky and not something that's accessible to most investors. So if you compare and contrast what traditional investors versus product investors do, you see a few key differences. Firstly, when you look at deal flow, product investors leverage product ecosystems and network effect to generate 5 to 7 times more deal flow than traditional investors. During diligence, product investors look at product signals when they do underwriting, and so they're able to build more concentrated portfolios, which means they can add more value. And then finally, when looking at the picks and the winners, product investors typically generate 3 times more outliers than traditional investors, with 1 in 5 versus 1 in 20, or even sometimes 1 in 30 for traditional investors, which means that in each fund, you get at least 3, sometimes more outliers versus only 1 in traditional portfolios. So how do you create that CPO alpha effect? Well, it's important to realize that it's not about the technology or it's not about AI. It's about how you bake a technology into a product to create business value. And also, it's not about lagging indicators like sales or revenue growth. It's about leading indicators like product engagement. And finally, it's not about like hitting a company at the right time just before the hockey stick. It's about creating a growth mindset and a culture of experimentation so that when you see an opportunity to get some product market fit, you can capture it and then over and over again, because products are now disposable and really needs to be reinvented every few months. And with AI, which we've talked so much about at this conference, it's so clear that innovation cycles are compressing. In the product side and the innovation side, you can see that cycles are going faster because products in large companies ship 4 times faster than before AI, because product builders vibe code and they no longer need engineers. And so the ratio of product managers to engineers has gone from 1 to 10 in traditional companies to 1 to 2 today in an AI era. On the investing side, it's the same thing, the same compression that we're observing where product investors are leveraging that CPO alpha effect. And if you want to talk about how to create that and how to become a product investor or invest in product investors, I'd love to chat at the end of this session. And now I'm going to invite my panelists with me on stage. So if you could please join me. Fritjof, Ben, and Mark, that would be great. All right, welcome you guys. It's great to see you here. I really enjoyed our chat backstage for a few minutes. Why don't we start with a round of introductions? And Ben, if you want to get started.
Sure. Ben Kasnoka, co-founder and partner at Village Global, San Francisco-based network-driven early-stage venture capital firm.
I'm Mark Gurmazian. I'm based in New York. I'm founder and general partner of MXV Capital. Prior to this, I was the co-founder and CEO of Braze, which we took public in 2021.
And my name is Fritjof Berge. I'm a Norwegian living in Singapore, and I'm the co-founder and chief business officer of Antler, which is a global early-stage VC. So we make investments across 22 different countries in 6 continents.
All right. And I mean, a few fun facts about you guys that I was able to gather. You wrote a really great book with one of my good friend Chris Ye and with Reid Hoffman. Want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I've written a few books. One was about my own entrepreneurial journey. One was called The Startup of You, which is about how to transform your career using entrepreneurial principles. So treat your career as if it was its own little startup. And then co-authored a book called The Alliance, which is about how to recruit and manage entrepreneurial talent into your organization. So how do you craft what we call tours of duty to engage your best people inside your company?
Amazing. Mark, you have 7 kids? Tell us about that.
About my kids. Yeah, I got married fairly young. I guess that's how it starts, right? When I was 26, and I had twin boys first, and then I had 5 girls right after. So I just had
Are you trying to combat the fertility population problem?
Yeah, you can talk to my wife. Honestly, it's my wife. She's the one that's pushing, and she loves having
Literally
kids.
pushing, yeah.
Literally. We just had a baby in June, so
Congrats.
it's a blessing, yeah.
That's awesome. And Fritjof, you're born and raised in Norway, and tell us a little bit more about.
Yeah, sure. And congrats, by the way. I didn't see this question in the pre-read, but no. So yeah, I started my career also in Norway. Was in consulting for the first part, then in a few different ventures. But after that, in the UK and the US, and now of course based out of Singapore, even though it's a lot of travel. But I think that that ecosystem, it's going in the right direction, but. There's just a whole different volume, and I think bigger markets. It's exciting to be in Asia, but also our firm is well established in the US. And I think, despite what everyone is saying about the startup ecosystems being global, which I think is great, and I think you can and really have the opportunity to start a company from anywhere, there is still just unbelievable talent and scalability in the US market. So it's fun for us to be able to have a presence both in emerging ecosystems and the US, which I think are stronger than ever in the startup space, as my two panel colleagues can testify to.
And you described yourself as everybody else's rich uncle, right?
Yeah, no, we were talking backstage. I think another term I used was kind of institutionalizing the initial angel check. So a big part of where we invest is obviously in emerging ecosystems, India, Vietnam, Malaysia, East Africa, for example. And I think in some markets, what seems trivial is not, right? Like getting some initial capital, finding other talented co-founders, and just getting some good advice to set things up in the beginning. So that's something we try to solve in some markets, and obviously in other markets like the US, the playbook and toolbox is already well established.
Amazing. So we're going to talk about a topic that everybody on stage I know is really excited to discuss, which is M&A. In this really shifting environment where we don't quite know what's going to be like the next big thing with AI, or what's going to be like the big exit, or how to play the game as investors, it's possible that there's not going to be any IPOs anymore, and so M&A is a good way to exit. So let me share a few facts. 2025 is shaping up to be a year of reckoning in tech and M&A. KPMG reports that global M&A activity surged past $1 trillion in Q1, with particular interest in digital products that function as infrastructure or deliver predictable earnings. So I want to hear from our panelists. The M&A surge, is it driven more by survival, or is it driven more by opportunities? What are you guys thinking? And we'll start with you, Fritjof.
Okay, I think it's driven more by opportunity, and if you have a strong balance sheet now, you can kind of leapfrog competition. You can get to scale quickly. The whole ecosystem and the whole market is changing fast. So sitting on the sideline is risky, and it's easy to take both sides in this question, but I think it's more an opportunity than a risk, and it's no guarantee if you do go down this route of a lot of acquisitions, a lot of investments, that you will succeed. The verdict is still out. So I was pondering this question earlier, and I landed on it being more of an opportunity than an existential threat, because I think it's too soon to say that it's an existential threat.
So we're going to say you're taking the side of it, it's strategic opportunity. Mark, why don't you take the defense side? We were talking about it on stage.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of survival. I think what's happening is you have a lot of companies that started in maybe 2022 or earlier that were pure SaaS, and maybe they didn't really take full advantage of AI, and they became these concepts of what we call SaaS companies, zombie companies. And I think even though they might be growing nicely, they're just not as attractive in the growth market. And I think they're looking for new homes. I also think the bar is much higher to go to IPO. You used to be, if you hit 100 million in AR, your next thing was an IPO. And I think that bar has probably exceeded 500 million. Some might even debate that it has to be at $1 billion AR to go to IPO now. So I think the bar is just higher, which turns into survival mode. So if you can do 1 + 1 = 3, maybe it turns into a very big opportunity as well.
Yeah, Netscope, when it went public, had about 800 million in revenue, so I totally see the bar go higher.
Who had 800 million?
Netscope?
Netscope, yeah.
Ben, which side do you want to take?
Well,
Defense,
I guess I think my comment is that what's fascinating about M&A and AI is that there's a lot of talent-driven acquisition, right? You're seeing companies like Amazon hire the talent out of Adept, or Microsoft hire the team out of Inflection AI. It's not technically M&A, but it functionally is an exit for those investors. And that speaks a little bit to the regulatory environment in the US right now, which obviously makes it challenging for full M&A to be complete. But I think when we look at the statistics around M&A with respect to AI, it's easy to be misled, because transactions like Adept and Inflection would not show up in those statistics. So I think the talent-driven, the desire to hire incredible talent from the hyperscalers and pay whatever is required among those who have gone to work or found startups is a really striking trend today.
Yes, yes. So I'm going to add a few data points from our global product platform. Right now, about a third of the chief product officers that we're talking with have an M&A mandate. And that's because their CEO want them to get AI, essentially to execute AI, but there's a lot of resistance internally. So anywhere from a talent acquisition or premium talent acquisition, or sometimes a strategic acquisition with vertical expertise is in the cards for them, with budgets that range from maybe 100 million or a few hundred millions to a few billions of dollars. So there's definitely a lot of interest on the other side. And then from our 2025 CPO Insights report, one of the 5 major shifts that we talk about is that chief product officers are essentially really central to M&A execution, and that it's seen as a bit of a survival tactic, right? Acquiring talent, surviving as a business, and it really points to product strategy and acquisition strategy converging. It's actually interesting when we started looking at this that when we looked at who owns the M&A agenda, very often it's the CFO, and M&A is all about innovation. It's like, why is this happening in the finance function?
I do think it's interesting because a lot of companies that are AI curious, the executives feel tremendous pressure to do something in AI, so to pay for some product, not because they're going to use the product internally, but because there's somebody in the organization some board member who's insistent that they do something in AI. So there's a lot of kind of fake AI purchasing right now in the enterprise, very low adoption, very high levels of churn on the products. I think these M&A transactions are actually a much more dramatic commitment. Like to spend hundreds of millions of dollars and acquire a company or import talent is a much more serious demonstration of being committed to AI. But many companies are not doing M&A. They're just like buying the latest products that get pitched. No one's using the product and they churn after a year, which is why I think as investors, we work with our startups. It's like, okay, it's never been easier to get to $1 million of ARR. It's never been harder to keep it because of that churn.
If I may just quickly, because I like what you said earlier about it's very people-driven M&A really now. A lot of people who are experts on AI say obviously that proprietary data is your real source of differentiation if you have some sort of data advantage. And to me at least, it looks a little bit, I agree it looks like a big commitment, but overpaying, paying sometimes billions of dollars for individuals could also translate into you're just panicking a bit because of your board is telling you to do something and you're just hiring a bunch of people and seeing what they're figuring out. I don't think all of these people are bringing with them proprietary data to build a sustainable advantage. So maybe it's a result of some of these big tech giants sitting on too much cash, but it is a commitment, but maybe it is a commitment that, we're falling behind, we need to hurry up.
I also think like a lot of times you have these public companies that are purchasing these AI companies because they want that cultural shift.
Yes.
So they've been building for 10, 15 years in the SaaS model, and it's the same people just drinking the same Kool-Aid, and they want to bring in like a smaller team that's been building AI and so on into the culture of the company. And I think that's a big reason why they're doing it.
Absolutely. I would love to also hear your perspective on how you built Braze. We were talking a little bit backstage about you had a very clear vision in mind, and then some of the competitors early on maybe were more like playing a game like go big or playing a get acquired or compete. Maybe talk about those dynamics.
Yeah, I think for us at Braze, we had a clear vision of building the next generation of mobile lifecycle marketing. We looked at the market and apps came out, and we saw like a lot of people were building apps and they were acquiring customers, and the last piece of the puzzle was retention. And then in between that, you had Mixpanel did analytics, you had marketing attribution like Localytics, you had A/B testing like Leanplum, and then Amplitude came in. And typically what happens with founders, once one other company gets product market fit, the other founders in complementary segments or verticals start chasing that one as well. And I think for us, we stayed focused and everybody else came in. And we paved our own road. I think that's also something that I take to heart with all my founders that I invest in is like, pave your own road, don't pay attention too much to competitors. Obviously you want to pay attention because you want to compete and it's fun and that gets you going. But for us, it was a big vision for us was just staying focused on what we were building.
That's awesome. Maybe talk about as you were growing and hitting these kind of key milestones, I'm sure you had acquisitions offers. I'm sure you considered maybe.
Absolutely.
Tell us about how you went through that.
Right after we closed our Series A, we had an offer, I guess I could say it, it's so long ago, but from Yahoo, they wanted to buy us for $20 million. And honestly, I was very excited and it didn't work out. We continued on and then we had an offer from someone else, I won't say who, for $100 million around our Series C. It didn't work out. And then right before the IPO, we had an offer from a public company, and it was, I think I could say it was going to move forward, and then it just kind of just dissolved. And then we went to the IPO a month later, which it was a blessing in disguise. I personally didn't want it, but and the whole thing just came apart. But for us, I think what I take out of that was when we started the company, it wasn't about building a company that will IPO, it was building a company where we can control our destiny. And if you do all the right things, the score takes care of itself, right? So I think that's kind of how we operated internally at Braze and kind of why we were able to control the destiny to where we are today.
Amazing. So when you invest in founders today, do you look at like the size of their ambitions? Like how do you evaluate potential exits as you make your picks?
Yeah, I think it's hard to, we do pre-seed and seed at MXV, but I'm just looking for someone that wants to break walls and they're evolving. I think the CEO you invest in today on pre-seed is not the CEO they'll be in 10 years, but you want to find the people that are continuously evolving and taking feedback and growing, and they'll be able to attract the people that will support them to become that person that they were and the company that they can build.
Great. Ben, you have an eye for talent. So when you invest, like, what do you look for? Is it like sell early, scale, build for an exit? How do you think about that?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of sloppy thinking when it comes to talent evaluation. It's striking inside a lot of investment firms. They're super rigorous when it comes to TAM and market analysis. They're very rigorous and quantitative when it comes to product analysis and competitive landscaping. And then when it comes to founder quality, they retreat into sort of vague cliches like, oh, this is a special founder, or this is a super talented founder. And everyone in the room kind of nods and says, oh yeah, this is a special founder. And no one knows what that means. Special to you could be different from me. And actually, these differences, I think, corrode a lot of investment cultures internally because they don't have a shared language for evaluating talent. Mm-hmm. At Village Global, we've developed a scorecard for evaluating founder quality across particular dimensions, and we score founders on a 1 through 5 basis on these dimensions, and we benchmark them against other founders in our global portfolio, partly because that's a common knowledge internally. Like if you're a 5 out of 5 founder and we can all agree that Jane Doe is a 5 out of 5, then it allows that comparison to be done easier. So some of the specific things we look for in founders, one is we look for founder market fit. We ask ourselves, like, did God put this person on earth to work on this problem, right? Of all the problems this person could work on, why this one? We look for otherworldly ambition, not just usual ambition. We want people who are not thinking about selling their company to Oracle, but building a company that can one day acquire Oracle, right? Just kind of a relentlessness that's truly rare. We look for a history of iteration. Successful founders come in all shapes and sizes, but if I had to summarize the one thing they always have in common, it's a track record of rapid iteration, kind of a relentless learning motor where they're taking data and iterating, right? When they have a setback, they tell themselves data received, right? And they process that and iterate upon it. And even if they're a young founder for whom it's their first company, we want to see in their life, do they have a track record of iteration? So there are a few other factors, but I think generally our philosophy is be rigorous, be systematic, document your findings, and create a shared language inside your firm so you all can be on the same page about what you're talking about.
Yeah, so I'm hearing coachability, growth mindset, discipline. Maybe give us an international perspective, Fritjof.
Yeah, well, first of all, I think we're doing a lot of the similar things that you just mentioned around just being more scorecard driven, less less emotions driven. We also have a ridiculous amount of input because every year there's 160,000 people combined across Antler who want to sort of work with us and get initial investment. And then that means we're actually knowing thousands of people before we bring them in, when they're working with us, and then many people we know before they even teamed up through Antler. So it brings a quite interesting data set. We're trying now to, based on these scorecards, quite similar to what was just mentioned, assess the likelihood of a founder succeeding in getting our check. But then also increasingly in the investment committees, we have kind of a AI confidence interval based on what they've seen across Antler and of course external data sources.
Did you say AI confidence interval?
Yeah. So we have
You're using data to...
Exactly. So I will say two things. We have a big team that are constantly iterating and building this out because it's quite sizable data, so we can hopefully be more convinced in the future. I wouldn't say we have replaced the human in the decision making because there's still a lot of errors there, like false positives and so forth. But I think over time it will be probably the most important voice because there's just so much data now in early stage that we both have internally and externally that you can be more data driven in early stage and less emotions driven, which I like the example you used from, this is a great founder without a lot of data behind it. I think it's hard to get these things perfect, but can you get them better than humans? I really do so, but maybe it's a couple of years down the line. At least we are bringing it to the table, but not letting our AI model, we call the whole sort of infrastructure Antler Fusion, we're not letting that decide for us. But I think over time, we may increasingly rely on that. And that also helps us make decisions faster, right? Which I think will be a really important thing for, all of us here are early stage investors, getting a decision faster because founders increasingly don't want to waste time, especially the good founders that just want to build, they just want to get going. And if you're taking 3 months and telling them get back in, later this year, they're going to move somewhere else.
So and you have so many data points, right? Because you have 1,670 investments.
Oh yeah, so 1,650 portfolio companies.
Yes.
That's been primarily over the last 5 years. So
your intelligence is really deep and broad. That's awesome.
The prior panel was on vibe coding. One wonders how long until there's vibe investing to make decisions. I'm a little maybe less optimistic that that AI or data analysis can really help on early stage.
Isn't that YC investing, by the way?
YC investing? Well, YC is still doing 10-minute human interviews.
Okay.
YC uses software to do top of funnel filtering. So do we. Like anyone who has massive deal flow top of funnel can take 2,000 pitches and get to the 200 that you want to evaluate. But to go from 200 to the 10, I think really does require human discretion now because there's often not a lot of data at their early stage. Until we get better at looking through their career history, if this is their first company, but it's still not obvious to me, somebody was a PM at Meta for 2 years and now they're starting a company. What is AI going to do with that data point in terms of weighting that experience? I think on the margins, I think there's a lot of internal workflow stuff that can make investors more efficient. Even something as simple as reference checking, which people can be very unrigorous about. But if you use basic workflow and software to automate certain reference check processes to organize the data, I can see that making the humans more effective. So the co-pilot use case, I think is very compelling, but just pressing go, analyze a pipeline, tell me which 4 companies to invest in, seems like we're very, very far away from that reality.
So I love the discussion on founder quality. What we look for, in addition to what you described, is also alignment, right? In teams, we want to see people who have the same goals because we know it can break a company if someone wants to take a $20 million exit versus go IPO. So that's another important factor. I want to go back to you, Mark, and really kind of dive a little deeper on kind of the Venn diagram between exits and products. So maybe when you share with us, when you invest in a company, given your experience with Braze, what are the product signals you look for to give yourself a sense of how promising the company is?
I think a lot of things we look at for is like who is the potential buyer of the product? What does the stack look like that they're using today? What is this potentially replacing, and what does the budgets kind of look like? I think the hard part is TAM. I think on earlier stage investments, I think maybe we focus too much on TAM because a lot of times I don't know if we can fully appreciate the potential TAM. And I think that's the hardest part for me outside of evaluating the founders and so on. But for me, outside of that, it's like who's the buyer, ICP, product, pricing, what is this gonna look like 5 years from now? Who are the other players in the market and so on? That's kind of how we think about stuff internally.
So it's really more like you look at the ecosystem play?
The ecosystem, absolutely. And kind of like how the mind shift is happening, how it's shifting on the buyer side. What are they looking for? What are the pain points they're going through today? And honestly, it's really hard right now with AI because it's moving so quickly. And every day you have the foundational models that are also just pushing product down. So we're looking at a deal and the next day OpenAI is pushing something out with workflows and you're like, it's super hard to I think it's really hard right now to be a pre-seed seed investor.
And the key, like in that ecosystem play with the speed that we're seeing deals go by, what makes the difference for you? Is it the speed of iteration? What's the...
To this point, I think we also look at for iteration. I think that at Braze, for me, it was like continuous iteration and listening to the customer, keeping our ear close to the ground, hearing what they want, and iterating the product towards the need, but staying focused on what we were building. Like we were building CRM, we weren't building analytics, right? So I think that for us, that was really important.
Amazing. Ben, you invest in pre-seed in the Bay Area. There's news every day about crazy valuations at this stage. So how do you think about valuations and exits in that pre-seed portfolio?
I think there's a lot of irrationality in valuations across venture capital today, but there's relatively more irrationality in the late stage market than the early stage market. You know, I think if you think of like investing as a vast ocean, those of us at the seed stage are kind of like at the bottom of the ocean floor where it's nice and quiet, sort of swimming along the ocean floor, putting seeds, and it's very calm. At the top of the ocean, there's waves are crashing, there's lots of hype, there's news cycles, there's geopolitical considerations. So there's some inflation, I'd say, at the early, pre-seed and seed, like maybe like companies in Silicon Valley today that are kind of central casting, day zero, no traction, are raising up 25 to 30 million post money. That's certainly higher than it was 5 years ago.
That's higher than Braze's first offer.
Yeah.
Our first round was $1 million on 4 million posts.
Yeah, and even like, Mark Pincus at Zynga, when Mark was a 2-time entrepreneur, taking a company public, and then founded Zynga, raised his first venture round, and there was like at 6 million post. That was a different era. So while there's inflation across the whole market, it's much worse at the late stage. And then it's particularly problematic for certain super high profile, like, Mira Murati, who I think is a great person, former CTO of OpenAI, raised $2 billion at 10 billion post seed round. But I would say generally, if you're concerned about valuation and price, you should avoid the late stage venture market. You should go early stage, where you can still make money if the company exits for $1 or $2 or $3 billion. You can still 50 to 100x your money at that valuation. It's the growth investors that I think are going to be sort of out of luck once some of these late stage companies go public and then deal with the much more rigorous valuation dynamics of the public markets.
Yeah, and there aren't too many exits at 1, 2, 3 billion. Like what we're seeing is, the average M&A is 1 to 200 million.
Yeah.
The IPOs today, because there are much fewer of them, tend to be bigger.
Yes.
Amplitude went public at 5 billion, DigitalOcean 5 or 8. Netscope now it's like 10, 12 billion. What valuation do you go public at?
We hit about 8 billion.
8 billion. So it's sort of like
I think
one or the other.
Well, I think this is smart people disagree on this. I think it's actually a fascinating question. The question is, because if you believe that it's going to be binary, then you shouldn't care about price discipline at early stage, right? If you think it's all about Stripe and SpaceX outcomes, then who cares if you enter at 20 posts, 30 posts, or 50 posts, the thing exits for 50 billion. If, however, you believe that there'll be that sort of the big winners are entrenched, and then there'll be a series of PagerDuty-like outcomes, like 1 to 3 billion, 4 or 5 GitLab, $5 billion market cap. Then actually entry price does matter. Then entering at 20 or 200 really matters. So I think people differ on this point. Our view at Village is we want to be successful in either world. So better to be price disciplined and not have to rely, like during peak ZERP, people were investing in companies at crazy valuations because they thought Zoom at 100 billion was the new normal. And then things came crashing down to earth. So I think discipline is how you win in bull or bear markets. But certainly some people that are bidding up deals believe, look, we're playing for the 50 billion outcome. That's the new normal. There isn't any in between. So we don't care about price as much on entry price.
I want to go to you, Fritjof, but before I do that, we're going to do an audience poll. So the question is, who wins in the AI-driven M&A surge? And you're going to see 3 options. You're going to see a QR code, yes, and you can vote with 3 options: major acquirers, independent builders, and those who can balance both. Okay, so please vote, and just before we wrap up this panel, we'll look at the results and we'll comment on it. Fritjof, question for you. We talked about the overlap between product and exits. What does it look like in your market?
The overlap between?
Product metrics, signals, and then exits, like how you think about that.
Yes, I mean, since we're in all markets, I can maybe focus a bit on some of the other markets, or maybe add some commentary on the previous question, because one thing I at least wanted to bring up is we talk now a lot about, you need to be bigger to do IPOs and all of this. There's also another side, which is private investors wanting to keep it private longer. Obviously, like OpenAI, maybe they're sorting some things out on the structuring, but they could have obviously gone public later. Some people argue that once you go public is when the private investors who have the most information don't feel that they can get a ton more return, and then they're sort of dumping it to the rest of us. So I wouldn't say that fewer IPOs doesn't mean that companies are not doing well. And you showed this slide earlier with secondaries. I think those secondaries will be, if companies stay longer, VC will have an even bigger ocean. There will be more secondaries between them. That will just rise as a sort of more active next to acquisitions and public market exits. So I think that's just important to point out. When it comes to Europe and APAC and other markets, I think you can start companies from there, but I do see that at a certain stage, it's so beneficial to have at least some presence in the US, and especially having some larger US investors on board, just because that's where you can get the really big pools of capital once you enter this mega round. So I'm optimistic that you can build and scale to a certain extent in other markets, but the US market is such a powerful way to really get big companies out. I mean, closer to home in Norway, you see that with Klarna and Spotify, for example. They're very much active in the US, big teams and offices, while they were starting in Sweden.
Okay, so we're wrapping up this panel. I have one more question. I'd love your perspective on when does, looking at the flip side, right? When does M&A hurt more than it helps? And we'll start with you, Fritjof.
I mean, when you don't get it right, obviously, one thing I'll maybe
give us an example.
I'll give a quick example. I think the cultural fit. I've seen many acquisitions of companies in Southeast Asia, for example. You view it as one market, where you take it too easily that you can just import a CEO from somewhere else. I think in the end, you need to convince everyone from the ground, the factory floor to the CEO that the change makes sense. Otherwise, it's going to be very expensive and very slow and might not be successful.
Mark?
It's a tough question. Like, you think about when Facebook bought Instagram, I think everyone in this room thought it was crazy, paying $1 billion. And could have Instagram been as big as it is today if it stayed independent? I don't think so, because they leveraged the entire distribution channel that Facebook created. So that's an example of, like, you can see both sides of it, but I think that worked out very, very well. But I think in this world, I think for me, it's like, it's hard when maybe the founder just loses that energy and that fire, and that's kind of sad. And I think that's when it sucks.
Burnout.
And then it just doesn't work out where they go. So I think that's also going back to the first question, is like, the founders we look for, do they still will they have that fire for it's hard to build a business. It's 7 years, then 10, then 15. I'm guessing it's probably average 10 to 12 years to really build a sustainable, strong business. And that fire to keep that going is really hard.
Ben,
I'll just say,
I
I think the only thing to add is I think the capital markets are opening up in America anyway, and so I think there'll be more IPOs these next couple of years in the last couple of years, which is ultimately I think the best form of capitalization over M&A. So I'm long IPOs, sort of short M&A over the next couple of years.
Amazing. And we have our poll results, so balancing is the winner. And with that, I want to thank everybody for joining us and thank my panelists for some awesome contributions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moderator.
Good morning, everybody. So we're going to talk about AI today, but it's going to be a little different from the generic AI conversations about superintelligence. We're going to talk about making AI useful.
Of other great open models from China came out, whereas in the West, I would say, especially in the States, and really outside of China, there is AI power and compute is getting concentrated among a few closed lab players. And we aim to step in and build the best open model of US origin and export it to the rest of the world into large enterprises and sovereigns.
Thank you. Martin?
Hi, I'm Martin from Cohere. So we are solely focused on enterprise AI. We're one of the, let's say, outside of China, 6 companies that creates frontier AI tech from scratch, not taking other people's foundational models, but the only one only focused on enterprise AI. We don't have a consumer chatbot, we never will, and we're also the only ones independent from US big tech. So we're officially Canadian, but we're a global company, and that means we deploy on any cloud rather than being beholden to one. But actually, well over 90% of what we do is private deployment. So it's deploying on VPC, regional clouds, all the way to on-prem, air-gapped on-prem, a little bit like Arvind was saying. The key here is we ship our tech to your data. And so for critical infrastructure sectors, often highly regulated, where they really care about data privacy, data residency, now we talk about sovereignty, whether that's national sovereignty or within the 4 walls of a bank itself. It's a very different proposition to what are quite generic global consumer chatbots that now are being deployed through cloud into an organization.
Thank you. And Umesh, close this off.
Very nice to be here. Great to be on this panel. I'm founder and CEO of Unifor. We are an end-to-end data and AI stack meant for large businesses. Businesses who want a sovereign and open data and AI platform in which they can plug in different models, different agentic layers and things like that. That's what Unifor delivers to these businesses. We serve about 2,000 businesses across the globe, several of which are Fortune 500 companies. And using our platform, what these companies do is connect up their data sources, which could be fragmented, living in hundreds of systems, use those to fine-tune a model of their choice. We are not a builder of foundational models, and so the choice is up to our customer. And then once they've done that, they can build agentic workflows on our platform. And I think I'm picking up this theme. Our positioning also is we deliver all of this stack in a sovereign and an open manner to our customers.
So there's an interesting thread here, which I don't think was actually deliberate in constructing this panel, that these solutions need to be open, they need to be tailored, they need to be flexible, they need to adapt to their customer needs, which is language you typically don't hear on the consumer AI side, which gets all the attention, where all people want is a highly performant, next-gen, out-of-the-box chat and video and voice and text interface. But the enterprise need is quite different. Martin, Misha, I want to start with you on some of these themes, especially around open source. Why is open source such a big topic, especially for companies?
So if we think outside of AI, most of enterprise is built on open source. Linux is the open source OS that powers most enterprise servers. Like most computers, I mean, our individual computers that we use have a closed operating system, but the servers that run compute for enterprises, the majority of them run on Linux. And most technology that an enterprise adopts and builds on top of, it's really for technologies that enterprise build on top of them. Those are all majority open source. And the reason is that you want a pretty great degree of customizability. And when something becomes a really important part of your technology stack, you want to own it, right? And you don't want to be locked into any particular vendor. So open models are kind of the new, let's say, next iteration of open source. If you're a large enterprise or a sovereign, AI is becoming your largest IP asset. It's going to approach, right? It's artificial labor. It's not software, it's artificial labor, meaning that it's going to be the largest line item that an enterprise has. And when something becomes so critical, you want to own it, you want to run it on your infrastructure, you want to customize it for things, you want to keep it in your data plane, and all these things, right? The right kind of product surface for that is open. Right? Closed products just have a hard time adhering to enterprise needs at that scale.
You mentioned lock-in as a big part of your answer, and something that companies have been scared of for quite a while. And Arvind, maybe coming to you on this concept of lock-in. Mm-hmm. Glean is a very agnostic platform in the sense that it sits on whatever data, on whatever models, and is focused on being useful to the enterprise. How do you think about this concept of lock-in in the world of AI? How do you talk to your customers about it? How do you solve to avoid it?
Yeah, well, I think with AI and AI agents specifically, businesses are increasingly understanding that, now it's not just technology that you're reliant on. Once you start to build agents on AI agent platforms, now in many ways, like your services and your entire business is running on technology, at a much larger scale than before. So lock-in has become a real concern. Like we hear this from enterprises continuously, that they want to make sure they're not beholden to one particular vendor, one particular cloud environment, one particular model provider. They want to have that choice. They want to have the ability to actually work with many different vendors and switch them, at will. And so that's a certainly like a thing on, which is top of mind for enterprise buyers. And it starts with models first. So there's no large enterprise, that's happy with just relying on one model provider, whether it's OpenAI or Google or Anthropic. They want to make sure that all of the industry's innovation is available to them. So with Glean, that is one of our key selling points, is that we make sure that an enterprise has that option to use any model that's in the industry for their use cases. You want to run your AI workloads in different cloud environments, so we also give that flexibility. And then finally, also making sure that customers and enterprises have this ability to build agents themselves on an open horizontal platform, which is what we provide. So instead of having to buy agentic products from many different vertical-oriented companies, they're able to actually standardize on our platform. So it's been a big trend, like especially I would say in the last 9 months, like this year, enterprises are increasingly vigilant about how they can make sure that they have that independence and the ability to sort of change vendors. One like maybe last thing to add is we're also seeing this trend of enterprises not wanting to sign long-term contracts. Instead of signing a 3-year, 5-year term with a vendor, they're actually right now trying to actually do just 1-year contracts so that they keep that optionality open in terms of if they want to switch to somebody else.
Thank you. And Martin, maybe an interesting counterpoint, because you build models, right? And so obviously you want your customers to use Cohere's models primarily. Correct me if that's wrong. But how do you think about this topic of model lock-in in your case, and how do you answer that question to customers who want to use AI?
Yeah, I mean, I'll try and be a bit controversial here to have an interesting panel. Many of these models, they're not open source. They're open weights. Linux was something created by distributed thousands and thousands of developers. The models we're talking about, for example, Llama, as one example, was trained with billions of dollars from a company that's literally worth trillions of dollars. They're not doing it as a charity, right? They're trying to control certain elements of that. The question is, if you build on that, will it be available next year? Will there keep being updates and so on? You also have no idea where the data is from. So Section 5C of the Community License Agreement, you accept all legal liability for any litigation or any issues that happen through toxicity or copyright from using that model. Literally, when you click it and download it, most people don't read, but you're assuming all liability. So it's open weights, not open source. But I think more importantly, we believe, and maybe not for everything, but enterprises want ROI, not AGI. I'm talking about some of our co-founders, Nick and Aiden and Ivan, who talk about that. They don't. Some of the teams may say we want flexibility, we want to swap things out. The analogy I use, or two analogies, is it's a bit like electricity. It's really hard to make. It is somewhat commodity. You need a nuclear power plant. We happen to have built one, so have many others. But no one walks around saying, do you want 25 kilowatt hours? Do you want a 2-for-1 on Thursdays? But that's a little bit how AI's been, which is how much are your tokens? Let's do an evaluation of 17 models against each other in some generic benchmark. That's not what is going to create value and actually create impact inside enterprises. And what we've seen is a bit like when I was a kid. My dad and I went to Radio Shack, we bought some transistors, bought a circuit board, a soldering iron, and we made a transistor radio, and it was super fun when I was 10. But my dad didn't use that to play music that evening to our guests. And right now we have a lot of companies who are, the tech teams are building things together. But what we find more and more is that the senior leadership wants solutions. They want things that actually work. And I'm not saying I think anything against what we're talking about here. I know that Glean is a solution. Obviously, what you do is provide solutions. And so what companies are really looking for, enterprise, is a partner to help them create solutions that are tailored, customized, configured for their problems. I used to be at Google. Google Search, 3.3 billion of us use it every single day. It's by definition generic. It has to be generic. Enterprise is the opposite. That's why Google's done 0 in enterprise search. It's because it's building to building combat. And we're finding actually, Arvind, that some of our partnerships are long-term partnerships because they're not looking for a vendor they want to swap out. We would never say we're a vendor. We're a partner, and in fact, we do enable our partners to, if they want to use, I don't know, Anthropic for code and plug that into our North Agentic AI platform, fine. If they want to use something, I'll sell you a Ferrari. If you only have diesel where you live, you can put a diesel engine in. Won't work quite as well, but if there's a reason to do it, that's fine.
I admire your commitment to not mentioning the other model companies. Great.
Well, I think that there are many outstanding companies out there, but it's a bit like the electricity. To some degree, there's like, are you going to compare 5 different types of electricity, or are you going to think about how that power is going to be able to create solutions with a partner who will help you deploy that and create things that will that will drive to impact and so on within what you're doing. Again, very different to consumer, very different to prosumer, and some of the generic things like PowerPoint's great. My competitor uses it too. It's not going to give me alpha. So we focus on those capabilities that companies want that give them alpha, that enable them to do something different with customization and configuration for what they need with the various engines and the various technologies that are deployed.
Thank you. And Umesh, I want to bring you into this. The notion of electricity is used a lot as an analog for AI. And I'm curious for your take on that, because it seems to me that electricity doesn't really improve fundamentally, but AI seems like it does on some cadence. And so as you build your tools, how do you think about this idea of model providers? Is it fungible? Are they commodities, which is another word that's, I think, thrown around without a lot of interrogation? How do you grapple with these concepts as you go to companies and try to make AI useful for them?
So, look, I want to make this real for all of us in the audience. We've been talking about a lot of concepts, but out there in the wild, the world of business AI is very complex. Let's take the case of a Fortune 100 company, a telecom major out of France. 40% of their business is in their home country, which is France. They run on a GCP cloud, Google Cloud infrastructure. And by government mandate, their model of choice for their French operation is Mistral. 20% of their business is in some other European countries where, because of partnerships, they run on a custom version of Microsoft Cloud. Not Azure, Microsoft Cloud. Here they prefer to work with Gemini as their model of choice. Talking about energy, was there a wave at the back? Sorry. Talking about energy, another 20% of their business is Africa. And because of lack of reliable energy in Africa, they don't have data centers, they don't have a cloud partner, so they run their business in Africa on-prem, bare metal, on-prem. Their data is all over the place. In Africa, the data has to sit next to the compute, whereas in France and in other parts of Europe, the data platforms are different. The chief AI officer now cares about delivering a consistent AI experience for the end consumer, calling the call center, want to experience AI, or the employees who might be trying to use agentic applications. But he cares about delivering a consistent experience in France, in Portugal, and in Kenya. But the infra is unique, the models are unique in each country, the data sits everywhere. This is what business AI is all about. Business AI is more of an architecture challenge, as opposed to saying, let me use this model, or let me use this agentic layer, or it's a complex architecture challenge to bring data, models, agents in a scenario where the business feels like they have choice, that they deserve. It feels like they can move to things as they evolve and not feel locked in, but be able to run it in different infrastructure environments, different compute environments, and still deliver a consistent experience. That's what our architecture is designed to help.
And building on that, and to also, it's a good prompt to make it a lot more practical. I want to ask you guys what's working. You've all been at very large companies in the past, DeepMind, Google, et cetera. The MIT paper everybody cites about 95% of AI deployments not working. Again, these headlines get a lot of attention, although you have to triple click to really get to the nuance. Yeah. So what is working in the enterprise, and what lessons can we take away from what's working that are generalizable to the folks in this room? And Arvind, again, maybe we start with you and Glean.
Yeah. Well, so, that report, has been well cited. And I think there's a lot of truth to it, that most enterprise AI projects currently fail. And what we've seen most success with is, number one, AI is sort of synonymous with ChatGPT, right? That's how this whole, wave started. And businesses are looking for a similar product to ChatGPT that's inside their company, that understands, all of that company's context and information, and is able to actually be effective as a day-to-day work tool. So knowledge access, having a general purpose AI assistant, for your employees, that is actually the largest enterprise AI application today. And businesses are succeeding. They're succeeding with products like ours, or of course Microsoft Copilot is also similar to that. So most of like what we see AI usage in the company is about that.
And here you're envisioning an employee at their workstation with a prompt box that they use to do their work.
Exactly, yeah. And it's a general purpose AI tool. You can go and ask any questions. AI brings the answer with that company's context connected to it. So that's knowledge access is the number one application. And then last year there were two big domains in enterprise, where we saw a lot of success. One of them is customer support. One of them is software development, right? So code gen tools, and then tools that actually help you automatically resolve customer tickets. So that was sort of like, the confines of AI. Those three use cases were the big ones last year. But this year, it's actually expanded quite a bit. And now we're seeing a lot of success, around agentic use cases for sales and business teams, tools that help you like prospect for new customers, that help you sort of prepare for your customer meetings, fill out RFPs, sort of like complete that go-to-market process. There's a lot of success with agentic tools there. There's also like, reasonable success, I would say, in other departments like legal, finance, and HR. So you're starting to see like, big success now happen with agents, so long as, you are not trying to actually boil the ocean and actually take, significant challenges, that.
And is this top down, the company says, we're going to launch these agents, or are you finding the success is because you make tools available and people find use cases for them individually and within their teams, and that's what actually works, is the bottom-up creation?
Well, look, there are both types of enterprises, the ones where there's a lot of bottoms-up energy, and then there's one where it's top-down. I think with bottoms-up, what we're seeing is that a lot of projects sort of reach some exciting demo stage, but then they don't really make progress because there is no pull, there is no mandate, coming from top-down that you have to make AI succeed. So it's good, it's good for education, it's good for sort of getting warmed up for AI, but real success in AI is coming when the enterprise leaders actually, well, number one, they appoint somebody who's in charge of AI and delivering success with it, and actually creating a small number of key projects that you have to deliver with AI in the next course of 1 year. So that strategy of establishing the right leadership and setting clear top-down goals is what we're seeing generate more success in enterprises.
Misha, for you, and especially in the open source community, I mean, the analog for me that always comes to mind when I think of open source is Red Hat, which commercialized Linux and made it useful in enterprises and built a very valuable company doing that. Is that a useful way to think about how to make open source useful in the enterprise in the AI era? Is it going to evolve differently? How do you think about what actually works when it comes to the open source ideas for the enterprise?
Well, I think open source AI is open, and it's open models with all the open source software around it, right? The software for serving it, fine-tuning it, building agents on it is already useful. It's more a question of how do you monetize that.
Yeah.
But I think, starting with this observation of 90 or 95% of enterprise AI projects don't work, I would say that's a feature, not a bug, because we are living through the most transformational technology change we've ever experienced. It's new, and there's a lot of exploration happening. It's kind of like saying 95% of startups fail. Well, that's the intention, because you're exploring the frontier of what's known. But the 5% that does work is transformational, right? Coding is completely different today than what it was, and it'll never go back. We've gone from assistants that help you in your IDE to agents that write software for you. Simple applications today, but the capabilities are growing. And what open source and open models let you do is kind of maximally explore the frontier of ideas, because you have full customizability. You're not just limited to prompting a model, which is actually there's only so much you can get out of prompting a model. Open source allows you to customize it, to dig into it. That's why open source gets adopted, right? Google has their own fork of Linux, effectively. Most enterprises have their own versions of Linux. And most enterprises have already adopted open models and have their own versions of fine-tuned models and so forth running around. They're just capability bound. Today's open models, if you're an enterprise in the States, you're probably still running Llama 3. That's 18 months old. So what you need to do is provide powerful, highly capable open models, because ROI comes from capability. Like, where do all the dollars accumulate in enterprise AI on the foundation layer? It's in the most capable models. So you can't, you first have to start at great capability, and then all the benefits of open source or closed compound, right? There are different reasons to use closed and open models, and they're useful in their own ways. But capability is the first thing that you need in order for either of these things to matter at all.
And Martin, I'll come to you last, but I want to just pick up on this point of capability, because Umesh, you made this point that it's about architecture, it's not about the cutting edge. So how would you respond to that idea that you need the best capability? Is Llama, if you stopped at Llama 3, you said we're not going to get more capability, is that still a lot of massive value to be unlocked in the companies, and how do you create that value?
Yeah, I think it's all about being fit for purpose in the area of business AI, because as has been said, what our buyers collectively is looking for is ROI and business outcomes, and not necessarily the novelty factor of what's new. And so from where we sit, we find that this adoption of agentic AI, while we're not seeing a very widespread bottoms-up type adoption, but it is very deep. And I'll use again an example to bring this to life on fit for purpose models and things like that. We work with a Big Four firm who came to us earlier this year and said, we have a live customer situation where the project, it was an oil and gas client, and who had said, contract leakage, run through all my contracts and invoices and find me areas where I'm losing money. And the proposal by the Big Four firm for a couple of years was about 1,400 people will be staffed on the project to run through your invoices. Today, it's about 200 AI agents with 4 human supervisors running through contracts and flagging issues. This all happened because there was a clear data source, a model was picked that could get fine-tuned for this use case, and then AI agents. If you think about this example, you do not need low latency. You don't need millisecond response back from the model for finding a contract that's leaking. It's running in the background, and so high latency is okay. Which means you can run it on not the latest generation of NVIDIA chips, which is Blackwell. You don't even have to run it on Hopper. You can run it on Ampere, which is the 2 generations older NVIDIA chip. Very economical. You don't have to run it on the latest model from OpenAI. A Llama 3 would have been just fine if it was fine-tuned for this narrow use case. However, once we went live with this use case and it was successful, now this Big Four firm, many partners are coming, and they have very different use cases. Some have contact center or customer service use cases. Now think of that use case. A consumer is calling the call center, voice AI is answering the call. What latency would the consumer tolerate? Is less than a second good? Maybe. That's a very low latency example. You want the model and the infrastructure to respond super fast, be accurate, be precise. You need high compute capacity, choice of model, different. So within the same firm, depending on use case and depending on the outcome that you're looking at, these choices need to start to vary. There is no one size fits all. And that orchestration cannot be a human decision. That, for contact center, let me now use model A, GPU B, or data compute C. That orchestration needs to happen at an architecture platform level. All right? And so that's when these things start to scale widely within the enterprise. Otherwise, they succeed in one place, and then for the second use case, you need to redo the whole architecture. That's why, unlike SaaS, where vertical SaaS was a very good thing, it gave us all focus. Sales SaaS gave birth to CRM and Salesforce. HR SaaS gave birth to Workday. In business AI, enterprise AI, vertical AI isn't a good thing. It needs to be a horizontal company-wide platform, which is making these orchestration decisions, bringing the right infrastructure to play to serve a use case, which is fit for purpose.
Thank you. And Martin, to build on that, again, you're the only one here who is trying to build the actual model, right? I mean, you are as well, but more open source, so I guess federated. And in Martin's case, Cohere is doing the whole thing. How do you think about this question of um, choosing and cutting edge. And in your case, you have huge research teams in addition to commercial teams, and you need to make trade-offs about where to spend the capital you've raised against pushing the frontier or going to market or building architectural solutions that have nothing to do with pushing the frontier. How does a company like Cohere make those choices, which seem quite difficult?
Well, first of all, I want to say I think we're all saying very similar things. One of the things I just wanted to double click on that was mentioned before, in consumer, I used to be at YouTube. It's often winner takes all. In B2B, it's anything but. And so I think everything that we're saying, even though they're slightly nuanced and slightly different, I think there's a place for all of these different perspectives. And enterprise, you always have a diverse set of solutions and partners and suppliers and so on. And so where we've seen success and how we think about it is companies that understand, I talk sometimes about a hierarchy in AI, and the widest, the foundational part are the mass market use cases that all of us will use dozens of times an hour, and they'll be very well served by Microsoft and Google. Just be built in a workspace, built in a 365. I don't think anyone here is funding an autocomplete app or a spell check startup. And so companies that are a thin wrapper on someone else's tech are going to be challenged because this stuff's just going to be integrated into what the productivity platforms provide, and we'll all use them. We already do. Google's already raised their costs. The next layer up are all the enterprise SaaS companies that we've talked about. They're not going anywhere. They're in every workflow. Oracle, Cisco, Salesforce, Bloomberg, Experian. They're going to build these capabilities into what they do as well. If you want to automate or JD, writing job descriptions, don't bother. Fusion will do that for you. It happens to be powered by Cohere, but that's irrelevant. It could be powered by any number of people. That's not going to give you alpha, just like creating your own version of Gmail is not going to give you alpha. Companies that are focused on the top, and that's where we focus, that doesn't mean that the other things are not going to be enormous solutions for enterprise, are the things that are mission critical that enterprises want to do that are going to be unique and different and customized and configured with their data, in their data environment, for their needs, where they believe that they can do something with their expertise and their data that gives them alpha against their competition. And that's where it needs to be with the CEO, with the tech leadership that knows where the AS400s are drywalled into the back, and with the AI leadership. It's not going to be teams just working by themselves. And in that case, what they need is ability for keeping data private deployment, hybrid cloud, multi-cloud, keeping your data where you care about it. Maybe that's sovereign, maybe that's in your own data centers. RBC, I was just on stage with them last week. We're deploying fully on-prem there. TD, we deploy VPC inside their Azure tenancy. The second thing is you want solutions. It's not here's a model or here's a chatbot. It's what's the 90% of the iceberg that's underwater? How is this ISO 42001 certified and 27001, and what are the orchestration elements, and what are the data access privileges, and what's the the data sovereignty requirements. And the third is in the customization and configuration to help you figure it out. It's not here's a model A or here's a solution B. It's how can you partner with me to help me figure out how this is going to give me alpha? And those are multi-tens or hundreds of millions of dollar questions that are very different from a still very valid, more generic, maybe lower alpha, let's say, solutions that will help with efficiency and so on. That's at least where we're focused, but that is complementary, I think, to just like everyone uses Google search in their day-to-day business. That doesn't mean that a bank is doing their loan pricing with a third-party app through SaaS. No, that's a proprietary system which is part of their lifeblood. And so those different, back to your question about where, who's having success, it's where those different tiers are recognized, and then different horses for courses. I think Arvind's very, very right. The internal knowledge agent is hugely valuable. That may or may not be what you use to, do your supply chain decision making, because that information may need to be completely on-prem inside, a refinery or something like that. So I think it's understanding that it's not just about a chat bot. It's not just about which is the best model. Is this going to win at Pokemon or something like that? And there are many different solutions that are going to be required. I think what many enterprises want is a partner that helps them figure this out. I think we heard that from you. A system, a solution that's going to work, something that's going to be able to give them, if it's flexibility, if it's customization, there are going to be many, many solutions here. And so those are the ones I think that are seeing it's not just about playing around. It's certainly not about 1,000 POCs, which is basically a demo with a slick GUI that's going to be thrown away as soon as the board sees it.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, and I mean this in a good way, I'm more confused after this panel than before. And I think that's true in so many companies that we talk to, where do I start and how do I attack this? And there's so many solutions, and where do I spend money? And it's all quite overwhelming in this moment that we're in right now. Yeah. I want to close this whole session with a switch in topic to speak about the world and internationalization, which is near and dear to my heart. We think of AI very much as a Silicon Valley product now. I think there are two headquarters of AI. It's Silicon Valley and Hangzhou or Shenzhen, pick one. And Misha, maybe we start with you in discussing the global nature of the open source battle. Maybe battle is the wrong word and you'd use a different one, but I'm curious how you'd characterize the geopolitical layer that's kind of quietly sitting on top of this whole discussion about AI in a way that was not true about cloud or mobile. We weren't talking about the geopolitics of cloud and mobile. So what is this open source battle that's playing out between Qwen and Llama and Reflection, and how would you characterize it? Why should we care?
So what's happening right now is not an open source battle, it's an AI infrastructure battle. Because it's not, when you're a sovereign or a large enterprise right within a sovereign, like, right, for example, we can take what's happening in Saudi right now or in this region and some others as well. This is the most important technology for any country. And so there are very large-scale infrastructure build-outs happening right now for building data centers to power sovereign intelligence. I mean, trillions of dollars of build-outs, right? From hyperscalers to NVIDIA, to the Chinese companies that are building out, AI factories and chips. And the build-out is happening around these things called AI factories, which are effectively a giant data center with many chips. They can be GPUs, they can be other accelerators.
Producing tokens.
Producing tokens. And to produce tokens, you need a model, right? You need a powerful model that sits on it. Now, if you're a closed model provider, right, you won't be handing out your model to these sovereigns. Like, it's your model, right? It's running on your infrastructure. So these sovereigns are looking for open model providers to come in and basically, right, put the brain into the AI factories. So let's say there's, right, a cluster of 20,000, Blackwells being built out somewhere right now in Saudi. Where are the tokens going to come from, right? They're going to come from the model running on top of that. And what's happening is that there are two major players in the world that can produce frontier models. It's China and the US. But China has 5 companies that are producing great open models, and the US has 0 right now. Llama 3 was the last really good model. Llama 4 was not so good, and now there's kind of this vacuum in the US. And so what does this mean geopolitically? It means that these trillions of dollars of infrastructure build-out that's happening right now, only China has the complete solution, right? China can come in to this region or elsewhere and say, I'm going to give you the full thing, the chips and the model on top of it. And the US cannot. And that is kind of the core of the issue that's happening right now, the geopolitical issue. That's why the White House issued the AI Action Plan in July, which is around exporting the entire technology stack. Because the crux of the issue is that all this infrastructure is getting built out now, and whoever wins it basically sets it for however many decades to come, right? These are trillion-dollar build-outs, right? So once a particular region adopts one set of chips and the models running on top of it, that's game over. And that's why it's important, this is beyond enterprise. This is just a national, international geopolitical issue. And it needs to be a balanced world, right? You don't want country lock-in either. You don't want vendor lock-in from enterprise, but you certainly don't want country lock-in. And it's important that it's a balanced world where there are frontier open models produced from the States and from China, and compete meritocratically.
Thank you. And speed round on this topic, because we're almost out of time, but on the internationalization piece, and yeah, Martin, we can go to you next. You feel free to comment on that, but also if you add like one quick note on the opportunity you see outside in the whole rest of the world for enterprise adoption.
I mean, I do agree with what Misha was saying, that this is existential. I'm unfortunately old enough to remember when the internet happened, and it changed everything. This is going to change everything. I think there are different solutions to what Misha's talking about. I don't think it needs to be an open source solution. We work with many companies and governments around the world because the point is they want to customize and configure for what they need. They don't want to have something that is developed in Silicon Valley or by a CEO whose values they don't share, whatever the case may be. For example, Fujitsu has objectively the best Japanese capabilities powered by Cohere. It's called Takane. We're doing the same with LG, which is objectively the best in Korea. That is powered by Cohere, codenamed Lucky Star. We're doing the same with STC in Saudi. I'll be on stage in a month at Mobile World Congress with Dr. Najwa there, which is the best at 12 different Arabic dialects for each of the markets they're working in. And we're doing the same with many other governments in some cases, or enterprises. The question is it something that a government is going to fund, or is it something that an enterprise will? The other thing that's important to think about, it's not just the fact that open source could be free. It's also the total cost of ownership. Now, these factories need to do the inference for these models. We have a design criterion that everything that we do needs to fit on 2 GPUs. DeepSeek needs 8, GPT-4o needs 16. So you're already at a factor of 4 or 8 more expensive without even talking about what the cost of the actual models themselves are. So even if something like DeepSeek is free, you need 4 times as much compute to get the same out. We also work not just on NVIDIA, but also AMD, also Grok, also Cerebras. And if someone says they want to use it on another hardware, we will put the work in to do that, because we think the total cost of ownership is what matters at the end of the day for enterprise. And I think this is very important internationally as well. That's why I think we do a lot with Dell, with Oracle in the US, with the government in the US, but the fact that we're Canadian and independent from US big tech means we can work with our friends here across the region, in Japan, in Korea, in different countries around the world, where they don't want to be tied into what are becoming maybe calcified silos of a very small number of multi-trillion-dollar companies, including some of the chip makers who are also trying to tie people into their chip ecosystem. We want to make sure that that's not a case as well. So I think there's a lot of exciting things going on.
And I'll pause you there, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And with apologies to Umesh and Arvind, we have to wrap it here, but I think you'll both agree there's a massive international opportunity. Please come speak to the panelists afterwards, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Sir, pleasure.
Great to meet you in person, finally.
Yeah, it's Mr. USDC and Mr. USDT, together again for the very first time. It's funny. Great. you guys at, so let's talk Tether, let's talk network states, let's talk all stablecoins, all kinds of stuff. So we were just talking backstage. You have a new app, KEET, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like like peer-to-peer mobile using BitTorrent primitives to do things, or BitTorrent-like primitives.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
exactly.
Good.
So basically, the idea is that we all know BitTorrent has been the best and most scalable and most resilient file sharing system in history. The way I would describe it is like, for people that have my age and probably your age, and I'm 41 now. So
the stack open source?
The entire stack is open source.
So actually, I remember Tron, if I got this right, they acquired BitTorrent a few years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so is this related to that, or is this its own thing?
No, it's a completely different thing.
Okay. It's an implementation that is spiritually similar to BitTorrent, but it's its own thing.
Yeah, it's a new thing because we rebuilt the DHT framework to make it more scalable, like everything from the ground up.
So it's funny you say this because one of the theses I had, and this is actually a version of this, is that you can go and revisit a lot of protocols from the past with crypto because crypto gives you a like for example, SSH or FTP or something like that. Now you have a blockchain for discovery where you didn't have that in the past, right? So many of those protocols would break down because they needed centralized state, so you'd go to a centralized server. But now you can have a blockchain where you can have decentralized centralized state or the equivalent thereof. And so this might be something like that, right? Are you using crypto IDs for identity on the network yet or anything like that?
So we're thinking about an ID primitive, but we're not planning to use blockchain for that, right?
Okay, fine.
So the way I would think about ID is that I'm Paolo, and I'm Paolo because people around me know them and Paolo. So I would prefer a concept like Web of Trust, where you have like, you remember the PageRank algorithm with Google, where more inbound arrows to me, then more probability that I'm the real Paolo.
So it's funny because I think that the version of this I'm looking at now is, I call it Web 3 of trust. Why? Because to authenticate an edge, you kind of often want a digital signature or something on it because there's so much AI fakery now that how do you know that something's actually real? Like you actually kind of want a digital signature. It's like digitally hard to fake, right? So
we use encryption as well, right? So we use cryptography. You are your private key basically, but the way you start weighting the private keys of your friends in order to create this Web of Trust.
Right.
No,
that's right. So basically my thought is, if you had not just a directed edge, but a signed directed edge, right? That actually, now that that PageRank is harder because the digital signature could come from a wallet that has a certain balance, it's got a timestamp. It makes it that's why that it actually really is a quote Web 3 in that sense, right? Anyway, just something I've been thinking about. So, okay, go ahead. You're going to say.
No, I mean I think we are very aligned because basically it's similar to what we're implementing, like a keychain system where you can have like a root identity, derived identities, and these identities can sign actually attestations on basically your Web of Trust so that your friends can take that attestation and bring it up so that you can create this super, verifiable Web of Trust
That's great.
is signed.
That's great. So I want to actually talk about stablecoins for a little bit. So as you may recall, when I was CTO at Coinbase, I launched the USD side at Coinbase, USDC side, and obviously you guys have done Tether. You've done very well, so congratulations on that.
Likewise.
think USDC has done okay too, right? And right. And it's funny because the in Bolivia, for example, I saw they're now quoting prices in USDT, right?
Yeah.
And so Tether, I think, very roughly has sort of become an unlocked dollar, right? Globally, because it kind of runs on Tron, it runs on other platforms, and so on and so forth. And I think now you guys recently relocated to El Salvador-ish, like last year or two.
Yeah, that's correct.
And now you are one of the largest companies in the world, actually, by some measures, right, in El Salvador, like in terms of interest income and whatnot. And I'm very interested in this because I think El Salvador and the UAE and Singapore are becoming capitals of capital in the Americas, EMEA, and APAC time zones, respectively, right?
Yep.
So I'd love to hear your thoughts on kind of the move to El Salvador, because I'm thinking about opening a network school node in El Salvador, and so let me know your thoughts.
Well, El Salvador, first of all, is a country that had a history in the past of being very unsafe, and recently, thanks to the President Bukele, became very safe.
Yep.
It was the first country to take seriously Bitcoin. It's the first country that had a stable coin on a stablecoin license and the framework. It's a country that is investing a lot in digital assets simply because it understands that, in order to, now that they fixed the security problem, the social security problem, and the stability from that side, they need to actually to bring in capital, they need to bring in investors. Their companies would not relocate there if there is uncertainty and insecurity in the streets. So that's why we moved there. Of course, we are opening offices, and we work with the regulators all around the world. We work in the UAE, for example. We work in Georgia. We have been in the United States. We participated to the write-up of, the education that led to the write-up of the Genius Act.
You guys should come to Singapore next year for Network State 2026. And come and speak there, yeah.
Yeah, would be lovely. Yeah. I was just there for Token 2014.
So this is great because basically I think what you've done with El Salvador, you've shown like a global multinational, really is what you are, right? Can relocate there. And I think it'd be great for El Salvador to publish, safes, like safe documents, like for financing. There's a whole set of docs where a lot of companies are moving out of Delaware now. And Delaware is being sort of ended as, Elon moved out, Hastings moved out, Eli Gill moved out, and so on and so forth. So Delaware is over, but what's next, right? It's up for grabs as to the location for international incorporation. And I think the UAE, El Salvador, Singapore will each pick up a piece of that business, and then on-chain vehicles will pick up a piece. So that's a potential opportunity for you guys and for El Salvador to get into, maybe, if you're interested in bringing more companies there. Yeah. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think El Salvador should become the stock market of Central South America for sure. There is a huge opportunity. Actually, we are advising and helping the government to go in that direction.
Yeah, and I think a lot of capital is probably going to move to Miami also. So Miami plus El Salvador, and also Milei winning in Argentina, Milei plus Bukele. Latin America actually looks like it's on the upsurge in terms of capitalism, free markets, security situation improving, which is a very interesting place for us to invest. Actually, Mercado Libre. Yeah. Like Wences Casares, the early Bitcoiner. It's a big, Mercado Libre is maybe one of the most, if not the most valuable country in Latin America. Go ahead.
Yeah, they're a great company. I met the founders. They have an enormous amount of users. They're $100 billion company, right?
Yeah. It's funny actually. Maybe if we both write a note to President Bukele, maybe he'll do it. Adding nonstops from El Salvador to Asia, because when people go through the U.S., they have to get what's called I think it's like a sea transit visa or something like that. To get to El Salvador, a lot of Asians can't do it because you need a visa just to transit through the U.S. and it's hard to get that visa. So just adding a nonstop flight back and forth to El Salvador, one kind of thing, El Salvador, Singapore, I think will put a lot of people on that plane, right? So we ask President Bukele on that. Maybe we can put the clip online, right? Okay. Has to be economical and so on and so forth. It might be worth subsidizing at first. Okay. So I've got a few more thoughts for you. Maybe you get some thoughts. So network states, right? Tether network state when, right? Go ahead.
No.
Yeah. So essentially, we've, as you may have seen some of my writings on this, we've started new companies, we've started new currencies. Can we start new communities, cities, or even countries? We've got documents online, and we print them out in the physical world. We have an Uber driver or Uber car, we print that out in the physical world. We have an Amazon cart, we print that in the physical world. Can we print out a social network, a cryptocurrency, and a crypto community? Can we print that in the physical world? We're starting to do that at Network School. We've got more than 1,000 Network School members. We've taken over a lot of previously empty real estate and so on. So we're starting to prove the template for doing this. I'd love to maybe bring Network School to El Salvador or to other places that Tether's operating and help you open nodes. Let me know your thoughts.
I'm very happy about that because we want to, and we are investing a lot in El Salvador. It's a great country, and we want to be supporting to, I'm Italian, and unfortunately I cannot be super proud of our political leadership. And when I see a politician that is able to change the fate of a country with hard work, is very dedicated, is very humble, is such an inspiration.
Yeah, that's why I have a post, Bukele Kwan Yu. That's funny, I think, right? Yeah, because it's very similar. That's good. I thought it was a similar kind of framework, right? And because, in a sense, one thing that's non-obvious, I think, that I realized over the last several years, obvious to people who've studied it, but security, physical security, has a fixed cost where once you've actually got it working, then everything else in the country just gets better. Whereas if you're trying to provide, I almost think there's no such thing as private security, because you could at best provide little bubbles of security. But if that's over the whole country, then everybody can kind of put down their guns and everybody can kind of, just build on top of that, right? And so I think
you reduce friction, right? So
you lose friction, exactly. Go ahead.
No, it's like, that is exactly why, well, Bukele has been criticized a lot, but, by European countries that actually now have the opposite problem. They're becoming very, very insecure, right? Yes. While the security of El Salvador goes up a lot, the insecurity in Europe is going down while they're criticizing El Salvador.
Exactly, that's right. And I think, it's one of these things where, El Salvador wasn't even on the map in a conceptual sense 5 years ago. And Bukele helped put it on the map. And now people talk about it, but no one would even criticize it if it wasn't doing something and accomplishing something. What's interesting about this is we're developing new models here where, Bukele shows that a country that really wasn't anything in terms of where people were thinking about it globally, by embracing technology, by embracing Bitcoin, by embracing they've gotten into AI, they've got the AI bill, they've got just good laws, good leadership. You can take something from nothing to really putting it on the map. And I think a lot of other countries are seeing that. There's dozens, we had half a dozen countries speak at Network State 2025 this year. We'll probably have like 2 dozen, 3 dozen next year. Everywhere from the Marshall Islands to Palau, Bhutan, like individual emirates within the United Arab Emirates. India actually has its own little, like startup city like things and so on going on. So there's all these places that are outside of the West which are looking for entrepreneurship and they're hungry for talent. I'm sure you've seen that.
Yeah, and look, the issue of El Salvador now is exactly education. So first of all, if we want to start up nodes there, schools, that's actually what we're doing. We plan to invest in schools, in education. We already built a couple of schools with a nice football pitch nearby so that kids can go there and have fun. But really, society needs to elevate through education. And just going back quickly to the point of having these different hubs around the world and having El Salvador, having UAE, having Saudi, and then Singapore. The technology we talked at the beginning is, I think, the best technology that you can use to connect all these hubs because it's fully peer-to-peer.
Keith-like thing, yeah.
Yeah, Keith, but also Hole Punch as a substratum of the entire technology. You can build any application on top of it, and it's truly peer-to-peer as internet was meant to be.
So the underlying tech is called Hole Puncher?
Yeah, Hole Punch.
Hole Punch, okay, great.
Yeah, so basically the idea is, the way I would think about all these nodes is that they should be able to talk independently from each other, but also be connected without any central servers, without any possible disruption to their ability to interact.
Not cryptocurrency, but crypto communication.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I'll play around with it right after this, so thank you for telling me about it. I do think we need more stuff like that. I know Dorsey is experimenting with BitChat. There's something called XMTP. There's the Signal protocol, and so on and so forth. I think maybe it might be good to commission a technical review of all this, just to put it on people's radars. You've got these new tool chains. CRDTs, like conflict resolved data structures, those are getting better. A lot of things are happening in that I should go and poke into. So thank you for telling me about it. What else is going on? I mean, you guys are pulling in huge amounts of interest. I mean, props, right? But what are you? So you have a huge amount of interest income. What are you investing in, and what are you doing with that? Maybe some of that is public. Tell me what you.
Yeah. So one project I'm very proud of is, the entire concept of Tether is how we can create the stable company for a stable society. And we identified 4 pillars. A, stable finance. So for any community, country, you need to have access to a form of money that is bringing additional stability, right? For Bolivia, of course, everything is relative, like in general relativity, right? So you have, for Bolivia, the stability means the dollar. For United States, stability might mean gold and Bitcoin.
Yes.
Right? So, A. So we have USDT, we have Tether Gold, and we are Bitcoiners.
Oh, Tether Gold, you have that. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so it grew, now it's $2 billion, the market cap, so it's smaller than...
So how does that work? So are you sending ounces of gold on chain, and then you have physical redemption for gold?
Yeah, so we have, every token is 1 ounce of gold, and the gold is stored in Switzerland, and we made it digital, basically, and you can go in Switzerland and redeem it for physical gold.
Okay, my suggestion, just a suggestion, is open up redemption centers in the UAE, Singapore, maybe a few other places. Think about like global capital to capital. And go ahead.
Is in the plans.
In the plans. Okay, great. Because I think if you have trustworthy redemption, that really does solve the problem that everybody wanted with gold stablecoins. Because the issue is, can you know that you? Problem. I mean, like if there's any Swiss in the audience, me no offense to this, but the problem is Switzerland isn't Switzerland anymore because with the Russian sanctions, with Credit Suisse, Obama's pushing on Swiss bank accounts and so forth. It's not like the neutral ground that it used to be, whereas some of these other places are, right? And I think redemption has always been, to me, the hard part of all of that, because you need to have very reliable, secure, because people will come to you, you need to be able to make sure that they actually have the certificate they say they do on chain and whatnot, and it's physical, so you're holding gold, so you need physical security, so you need to be in a high security country. A lot of tricky parts about that, right? But if you can nail that, I think that'll be really, really good.
It grew 100% in the last 3 months. You could see also the gold price going up. And
totally.
Yeah. So we have that. So we have stable finance, and that is our main concept. Plus we built an open source wallet development kit that is an entire library to build self-custodial wallets with USDT, Bitcoin, Tether Gold inside. You can embed it in any embedded device, any smartphone, anything, right? So we have that. We build an execution layer called pairs. Is a pair runtime. Being Italian, peer-to-peer, pair-to-pair is the same thing for me. So we call it pairs.
Yep.
And is able to execute, is a C++ runtime that can execute, actually, you code in JavaScript, but it's C++ behind the scenes, and you can execute on any laptop, any smartphone, even in like a $30 smartphone for Africa. Then, so we
what does that do? That runtime does what again?
So you can code once all the business logic and execute everywhere, right? So instead of using
like Java, but for
yes, but it already execute on every platform. So we have that because
And what is the purpose of that? What is it doing on those computers?
Because we want to have our technology embedded in every single device, from a light bulb to a spaceship.
Interesting. So you have like embeddable tether.
Yes.
I didn't realize that you had gone that deep into things. That's interesting.
So we just launched the technology for that. So we have stable finance, we have stable energy.
I see. So now you can have, for example, a robot dog, and it can send and receive tether payments, for example.
Exactly. You have a smart fridge, a self-driving car, everything. It should be, even a light bulb in this room, in the future, should have a small AI chip that understands how much electricity should absorb and micro-pay for that.
Yeah, so I've thought, okay, this is great. So I've thought about this a while, and the 402 API that Coinbase has, which is like based in part on some of the stuff which I'd done a long time ago. So the one concept, one vision for where AI is going to go is like the garden of intelligent things, right? Not AGI, but right now, with any device that's using AI, you need to prompt it, right? Fine. So you've got an AI robot dog, you've got an AI fridge, right? That knows, what food you like and can automatically order, can hold a conversation with you. And now it's also got a crypto wallet. And so it could actually go and buy that food from the store. So you have a conversation from it, it buys it from the store, the robot comes, it takes care of it, restocks it for you, done, right? So that's kind of part of the vision, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. I think in the future there will be 1 trillion AI agents. They will not have a JP Morgan account. Right. They will all using layer 2s and peer-to-peer money channels, and they are going to kick us now in a second out of the...
Great. Well, okay, so should we work together on building Startup Society's network states?
Yes.
All right.
Let's start from El Salvador.
All right, awesome, great, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Great.
Thank you, Balaji.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kay from Westrail International. For decades, container logistics has been invisible backbone of global trade, but it's also one of the biggest contributors to carbon emission, inefficiency, and waste. It's a story today to show how we are making real change toward a smarter, greener, and more sustainable world. To answer this question, we work to develop a complete transformation methodology. We call it lead and deep approach. It's to lead the green wave to bring deep impact. It consists of 3 phases. 1, electrification. We switched diesel equipment and facilities to electric power by deploying battery swapping and energy storing system. 2, AI. We integrate smart vehicles, AI-based terminal operation system, and intelligent energy management platforms. 3, linked energy. We connect everything, vehicle, system, and energy, into a circle AI-driven green ecosystem. This is how we turn traditional logistics into intelligent, electric, and decarbonized logistics. So what does this transformation look like on the ground? Let's show we have 3 major logistic operations. 1 is Q-Truck. In the middle is 2 Q-Tractor, and the left wellboat. Together, these innovations redefine the way logistic ports automated, safe, and efficiency. But our ambition goes beyond the ports. In this map, from factory to logistic park to the dry port and to the airport and the seaport, we are connecting and integrating these complex processes across multiple modes and states in logistic chain. Our goal is to build a global unified timetable, a live schedule that synchronized trucks, rail, vessels, and yard operation across every intermodal node, so that the entire chain behave like one system, few delays, low emission, and high throughput. We have developed our solution around the world, bring actual value in decarbonization and digitalization to major logistic hubs in the Middle East. We collaborate with Egypt, UAE, and Oman, especially in Riyadh. We have developed our solutions for Saudi global ports, Jeddah Gateway, and Riyadh Jordan ports. During our journey in transforming logistics, we realized something deeper. To change logistic sustainability, we must also change the flow of energy. Modern ports are evolving from pure logistic hubs into green energy hubs. Ports can now become sustainable fuel centers, host the offshore wind farm, and power electronic to ships, trucks, and port equipment. In that world, the future seaports is both a logistic hub and a green energy hub. Unity in logistics and energy to power efficiency and sustainability. So what's the next? The next stage is deep integration of energy flow and logistic flow. The energy system in the future should connect power generation, small grids, trucks, port equipment, and shore power system. Data-driven control. This system can include monitor electric forecast demand, manage controllable loads, and cut power peaks to optimize energy efficiency. This is how we help our user achieve a visible of the future smart port, a port that operates intelligently, sustainability, and autonomously. Now let's talk about a step back in the time. In 1956, Michael Mellin invented the container, a simple metal box that unified standards, reduce cost, and connected the world. Nearly 70 years later, we believe we are standing at a similar turning point. Just as the container changed the world once, we are changing containers again through the power of intelligent logistics and green energy. So let's end with our core belief, make a world change. This is more than a slogan. It's a commitment to innovation, to sustainability, and to partnership. We welcome collaboration from all over the world to join us in this journey. Make a world change by changing the containers world. Thank you.
We could join in with the audience.
Yes. We don't have a...
Can we go?
Okay.
Okay, everyone. Good afternoon. Pleasure to be here with you all. Our moderator hasn't yet joined, so I'm going to kick this off until she gets here. My name's Mark Loughran. I'm the president and the CFO of a fantastic company called InDrive, and here are our fantastic guests. We're going to talk about the paradoxes and the challenges and the amazing opportunities within the gig economy. So without further ado.
Yeah, hi. So this is unique. I feel like we're a trailblazing panel because there's no moderator or an audience. So we're making history. This is the first. But my name is Faraz. I run a platform called Noon, where the region's sort of homegrown e-commerce and convenience platform. Pleasure to be here.
Hi, pleasure to be here as well. I'm Yakir Gola. I'm the founder of GoPuff. We're the largest instant commerce platform across the US and Europe.
Thank you. Maybe just as we start, let's get a bit more depth into the companies. So why don't you start? I mean, you're big in the US, you're big in Europe. Give us a few more details on your company, and particularly what are the challenges and the opportunities from the gig economy work?
Yeah. So we started our company about 12 years ago, bootstrapped and scaled the company now. We operate 500 micro-fulfillment centers across the US and Europe. And we do instant delivery 15 minutes on average, about 15, 20 minutes, 24/7 of everyday essentials like groceries, medicine, alcohol, anything that you want delivered instantly. And we've expanded, dramatically over the last, decade. We now also have signed a major partnership with Starbucks, where we actually offer hot coffees, frappuccinos, sandwiches, all delivered same price as the store. So the big differentiator for us is speed, which is, the most obvious one. We're the fastest in the U.S. By far. We're about 25% more affordable than third-party platforms because other platforms go to the store, pick up the goods, and charge you a lot. And then reliability, we have a 99.5% order accuracy versus others. And so in terms of the gig economy, I would say we think that we provide a flexible platform for the gig economy. Whenever they want to work, they can hop on the GoPuff app and sign up to work. So what we kind of focus on is if our drivers are happy, then our customers are happy, and so we really go above and beyond to build, a really unique platform for our drivers. And so, it's something that we put a lot of our tech, resources around, making it a great platform for drivers, and actually quite unique because for us, our drivers actually come to the warehouses, so they're able to do things like use the bathrooms and have parking, and so it's really designed for an e-commerce experience. So those are, a few things, that we focus on from the gig economy perspective.
So for you, dignity and support is important in the business model?
Yes, extremely. Yeah.
Super. Again, a bit more depth on your company.
You're doing this really well. I have to give it to you. Besides being
if I ever need another role, here I am.
Yeah, exactly. So Noon Noon was born as a dream to be the digital storefront for our region. It was obvious to everyone that consumers were going to seek services and things online. And in 2017, we were born. We're a PIF company, so we were born with the mission of supporting the local retail ecosystem and infrastructure ecosystem come online. And so we started with a Amazon-like marketplace. Amazon was here already, so we're now the leading e-commerce platform in the region. Over time, the mission of the company evolved to serving customers every day. The mission is every door, every day. And we couldn't do it without sort of getting into convenience services like food delivery. Quick commerce is actually very big for us. In many ways, this region is unique because you've got developed market baskets, like sort of the propensity to pay is as high as some of the more mature markets in the US or Europe, whereas the cost structure is slightly better, so you could actually have emerging market costs. So you could deliver breathtaking convenience at good value where it's beneficial for the platforms where you can do it reliably and sustainably, but also for the participants in our ecosystem, including drivers and partners. You'd be surprised. The median delivery time for a quick commerce company with similar scale is about 11 minutes, and customers are unhappy. So
everyone wants everything now.
Everyone wants everything now. So it's been interesting, but we see our platform more as a sort of flag bearer for this digital transformation, providing opportunity not just to our logistics and fulfillment sort of colleagues, but also to brands and sellers that want to go online, but also to talent that wants to work in a digital-first company in our region. So that's how we think about it.
Super. And for me,
how about yourself?
Yeah, how about you, Mark? You run a fantastic business.
Yeah, thank you. A few words on InDrive from me. We have a mission to change the lives of 1 billion people by 2030. Part of this is through our core commercial business. I'll comment on that in a second. And part of this is through the various social impact projects that we do in the areas of education, in the areas of sport, in the area of startup and tech, and in the area of the arts. On our commercial business side, we're in 48 countries, just over 1,000 cities. The main commercial business that you would recognize within there is a ride-hailing business. We do around 7 million rides per day, to just give you the idea of the scale. Very successful. We're very proud. We started in Siberia, in Yakutsk, 12 years ago.
Really?
And now here we are in the 48 countries. We run from Latin America, North Africa, Africa, Central Asia, and Southeast Asia. So never a dull moment. Amazing economies, amazing people. The breadth of it is obviously large, and we have a fantastic team running it. On working with the amazing people who deliver our service, we're very proud and focused that we want it to be fair. We want freedom of choice for the drivers and also for the passengers. They negotiate what is a fair fare between themselves. The drivers never have to take the ride if they don't want to, and the drivers get paid directly by the passengers at the end. So the cash flow moves super quickly in the system.
Just to click down on this, like running a platform that has to expand to new cities, and Yakir, you also comment on this, please. how do you balance expansion versus sustainability and profitability? So there's always tension between growth and profitability. How do you guys think about it, and to both of you?
Yeah. So for me, very, very carefully. Originally, I mean, now we're 12 years in, and I joined the company nearly 3 years ago. And at that time, the team that was involved in the execution in the markets was the same team that was involved in the new markets.
Okay.
And actually, what I noticed is, not surprisingly, there's a lot of hard miles in getting into the grit and the depth to grow your market share, grow your position in markets you're already in. And it's quite exciting and exhilarant to launch in the new markets.
Yes.
So actually, we split those capabilities out. So now we have the team whose job it is to grow and develop, and we kind of look at that P&L and operation separately, and a very strong central team who are experts at efficiently, and I think the word is efficiently, launching in the new market. So we split the capabilities, and then we pass and in fact, it's not just about a market, it's about a city.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, I think our world is about cities.
Yes.
You kind of pass the city over when it's mature. So Saudi, we launched in Jeddah in March. We just launched on the 23rd of September in Riyadh.
Yeah.
Probably Jeddah will be handed over to the core business earlier. Riyadh, we will continue on its development. So this is how we do it, and we look at the P&Ls and investments separately.
Yakir, to you, how do you think about this? I feel like instead of going this, there's this constant tension while operating a platform where we want to go claim market share and margin dollars in a city versus launching a new city. I'm sure you sort of battle this tension every day.
Yeah. So when we started GoPuff, we started in Philadelphia, and we were actually profitable for the first 3.5 years of the company, and we were focused on the college market. And so before we actually started to expand beyond the college market, we were generating profit and expanding off profit. So it kind of taught us a discipline from the beginning around making money and being kind of resourceful. But when we kind of scaled our business and we started raising capital and attracting investors, one thing that we made a lot of mistakes along the way, but one thing that we learned was it's much better to go deep, and be number one in a market versus spreading yourself too thin. Because in this business, at least in my business, scale really matters, right? And you need to have the scale to have the profitability, the unit economics. I'm sure you experienced that too. And so for me, it's been, I'd rather do less, but be really large in those markets.
Okay.
I'm only going to go into a market if I really see a clear path of scaling and getting to that long-term profitability. But a lot of my competitors that in the past 5 years raised a lot of capital, one of the reasons why they failed and we succeeded is because they actually spread themselves into many countries.
Yeah.
Too fast all at once, and realize you guys run great companies, and understanding the local customer and what they want, and you said this, right? It's a city business, so it's even a neighborhood business, right?
Yeah.
It's
a community business.
Community, right? People in Manhattan want different things and have different expectations than people living in Chicago or in Phoenix, Arizona. So you really need to understand the local customer in order to really succeed. So our philosophy's kind of been trying to balance the growth and profitability is, don't take on more than what you think you can handle. And it's always a trade-off, of growth and profitability, but we try to, do both. But there's also different phases of companies where, sometimes we're more focused on growth, sometimes we're more focused on profitability, but, it depends on, the priorities in the market and sort of the overall dynamics of competition.
Super. What's your thought? How are you balancing it?
Yeah, look, I think for us, it's two levels of tension. One is that we're in many businesses, so we are, and I'm sure, that was going to be my next question to you guys, which is there's another paradox in a platform where because you have users, you feel like you can do more with those users. So,
we're exactly in that place at the moment, by the way.
So we should discuss that.
Let's have that discussion.
Yeah, let's have that discussion after. That'll be our next chat. So for us, it's been, we operate 3 countries, and within those 3 countries, we operate about 400 cities. And for us, it's always been about getting some sort of operating leverage. On a core e-commerce business, it's easy to get an operating leverage because you run a large warehouse, and then the more demand you get better efficiency. I feel like at some point, scale with suppliers comes with just sheer turnover, and for that we've had to go into new, less competitive cities to grow ourselves. I mean, it's not different from what you guys do. But it was very important for us to have a very profitable core, and that's what we focused on. And as if your core can generate contribution margin dollars, you feel like you have the wings to do more things with it. So we're still quite early in our local commerce journey, but I feel like we're blessed with a fairly large core business that is now more stable and it's been around for 6-7 years. That's kind of like I mean, that's my perspective on it. But
What's your experience been like in the, let's call them second and third tier cities? Has there been, you know, there's two, back to paradoxes, right?
Yeah.
There's like, are those cities or towns really developed enough to want that service? Or is there just so little competition, it's like big opportunity? How does it balance?
Great question. We feel like, if I may say it to you, no, I think for us, we find that tier 2 towns are underserved, and there's greater appreciation and stickiness for good service. So we really have found it incredibly rewarding to not only go out and seek those customers, but also just the emotional high you get from service and sort of like the compliments you get and the virality you get in that sort of general polygon. But yeah, like I think tier 2 towns for us are more about bringing a value proposition they've historically had no access to. In e-commerce, it's also been interesting for us to just take. It's also about providing access. So if you want adult diapers, your pharmacy doesn't carry them. And as a platform, we can bring that service to you. You're going to be more grateful and sticky. So there's this sort of like element of service in our platform because of the nature of our birth and our shareholders. It's been interesting.
What about in the US, the rural and the cities? How have you approached that?
Yeah. Because our foundation has been college towns, now it's a small part of the business. We actually have done really well in tier 2 and tier 3 markets, similar to what you guys talked about, which is like there's less options. Things are further away from you. You can't just step outside of your house or apartment and have a store there, right? So people want these types of services that we all three of us offer, and so we actually are like very profitable in a lot of these kind of tier 2 markets, and we actually achieve high levels of profitability in the tier 1s. They just take a lot more volume and scale. But like we, even in our UK business, you would think, hey, are you most profitable in London? Actually, our most profit actually comes from like the regions, and we are able to use some of that profit to reinvest in other areas of the business.
One question on this, like, do you also find that labor availability is better in smaller towns? Because in cities, the same demand is competed for by multiple platforms.
Yeah, I do. I do see that with labor. Do you guys see that as well?
Yeah. I mean, I was just going to also comment. I mean, I also think you asked about entry into new countries.
Yeah.
We've often entered actually not into the main cities.
Yeah.
Actually, we've entered outside of the main cities. There's a number of reasons, but it really it's back to this our businesses are community businesses.
Yep. Right.
And you need to know the people, you need to know the cultures, you need to know the preferences, you need to know what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. And there's often a need. And sometimes actually our application we make available in even quite smaller towns, but we don't charge any commissions there in some of those. Because when you're talking, particularly on our side, like mobility, I think we found out during the COVID era, a lack of mobility is a serious problem.
Yes.
And people sometimes in the rural areas, they need mobility. So it's also a kind of social good to allow to connect the community, to give people the opportunity for good jobs.
Yeah.
And if you're doing well in your core, I don't think you need to milk every single opportunity. You've kind of got a responsibility as well to do with the platform that you've got.
So I guess for you guys, we're all running pretty big companies, scaling companies. What's been sort of your biggest learning, over last 5+ years around running the business, right? As a founder, operator, running the company, like what's been the most, the biggest learning where you'd like to share with another founder, operator, right? Because I think that would be helpful for us to share notes around that.
Maybe I will first thing come
please.
to you. Mine comes back to how I actually answered one of the previous questions. It was a couple of years ago when we pivoted from the launching to actually, and we looked and we had some countries where we have 60% share and we are the leader. And we have some countries, big ones, where we're at 3%. And actually we're third or fourth place. And what it took to re-engineer for the not just the structure, which is how I answered it before, but on the capabilities that you need, both on the customer side, with the insights that you need to how you localize a global platform. And then on the, let's call it the driver side, and all the services you need, not just the logistics of it, but other services like credit and financial services, really understanding the needs of the drivers, because they have a choice. Yeah, that's what's fantastic about the gig economy. They choose whether they work for you or not. They could work for one of the other platforms. And the depth and the capabilities, there's probably 5 or 6 key capabilities we built over the organization to really allow us to manage both sides of the marketplace. And then we build a very strong, with data engineers, marketplace management team, right in the center. And I think that was us, evolving from this amazing launch machine to really a very strong capability there. And actually, I think that platform will allow us now to build other adjacencies and be more resilient to competition and allow us to build opportunity. So that's kind of my biggest learning. Yeah. But it was a culture change as well. Wow.
Right.
Look, there's a slide in our last board deck where I've been doing this for like 33% of my life. This kind of like this company. So I reflect sort of like more, sort of like on another axis. I'd say that I feel like there's just been general growth as a person, and I appreciate how I feel like the number one thing I've sort of come to appreciate now as a manager is that clarity is most important. And often as founders we're second guessing ourselves. There's a lot of imposter syndrome. We're taking in a lot of advice. A lot of our teams are very kind of like democratic. Sometimes someone needs to take a call, and being decisive is probably the number one role that we need to play as the icebreaker, as the final casting vote in a team. Often you boil the ocean, you're not clear about strategy, but I think picking the most important missions and being firm and decisive in our approach to execution sounds easy and simple and obvious, but I feel like I'd say that probably like that's something that I've grown the most on over time. What do you guys?
By the way, I remember when I was a teenager and you read those management books or whatever, and it says, strategy is as much about what you don't do as what you do. And you casually read it as a teenager. I think now we live that. If you're in a high growth entrepreneurial environment, actually that phrase, those choices are some of the toughest things that you can possibly do. Because there's so many ideas that people are excited, even emotionally attached to. But actually how you make the choices there, this is tough.
I think one thing I'll add before we pass it on to you as well, and really want your comments on this. Over time, I've realized that I've really realized the value of technical resources in business roles. To go fast and to build more things, you often, there's a poster on our wall which is like there are two types of companies where curiosity becomes a meeting or curiosity becomes a SQL query. I think in order to inject speed and energy into execution, you also need people who can somehow design the answer technically and sort of like be more firm about where we need to go. But I guess it's connected to what I was saying earlier. How about you?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think that's a great point too. I think for me, it's been a lot around like culture and kind of values. And when you're building a company, a lot of people say core values are really important. And sort of you say but it kind of sounds a little a little boring stuff, but you know, when we were kind of going through our growth phase of even post-COVID, and we had, you know, we were growing like 600% at one point, and so our business was scaling so fast, and we were hiring so quickly that we lost the touch on the values and the culture around who we're hiring and what do we really stand for, right? And so people could impress you in interviews, and you get introduced by someone and their fancy resumes, and they're the ones that they're the ones that build Amazon, right? Or whatever. And you guys know what I'm talking about. And you know, you hire them, and they're really smart. You know, they're really impressive, and you know, you want to give them autonomy, and you want to let them do their thing. And you know, I would say almost all the time that's a huge mistake because if they need to understand and appreciate your customers and your culture and your values. And so when we had this period where we took our eye off the ball around that, we actually needed to course correct on the culture and the values, and you know, really make sure that, like to your point, we hire people that are fit for our organization, and you know, not just for what they've done in the past, right? But actually they fit the values. For us, it's like putting the customer first, you know, changing the game, being an owner. Those are some of our values, and you know, we really focus on that. And are these people that really will get their hands dirty, right? And they'll roll up their sleeves. So that's kind of like we course corrected quickly. We got rid of some of those people that didn't make sense for our culture, and we really kind of doubled, tripled, you know, down on the values. And I think that's been a huge you know, thing, because people are really excited at, you know, at GoPuff. There's a ton of momentum. People know that we're gonna pass the ball, and we're gonna, you know, promote those that are delivering results, right?
Another paradox I want to ask about, both of you guys, like run huge companies. I struggle with this sort of like idea of like control, like between like, let's say the founder, the CEO, and the team. There's always this like paradox where you want to empower, but you don't want to lose speed. The decisiveness versus sort of like organic sort of, how important is the role of the leadership or the ultimate sort of like CEO or the founder of the company in the, I mean, now we're like kind of pivoting back into the super founder driven sort of like startups versus all the CEOs running the company. What is the balance? How do you think about this stuff? I feel like imposter syndrome gives way to sort of like acknowledgement, but I want to know what you guys think.
Yeah, I'll tell you my perspective. Mark would love to hear yours as well. Is basically, I think Brian Chesky actually says this well. It's like, you know, I think he actually created the founders mode kind of concept, but for Airbnb, they only work on things that, you know, he basically signs off on, right? Like the product roadmap, everything on the product roadmap kind of needs to run through him, and it needs kind of his, you know, his focus. And I actually think that's smart, because I think when you get to you become like a bigger company, and you're like, okay, let's just delegate stuff, and people start doing dumb shit. And even if you have a great culture, but like, I think it's like, you know, it's really important. So I actually think, you know, being hands-on and being in the details, and it's not about micromanaging, although sometimes you need to micromanage, in my opinion. I think it's about staying close to the business, staying close to the customer, and you can still be an organization that empowers people to be doers, absolutely. You just want to make sure that people actually focus on the most important thing at the time. So empowering people and letting them, you know, run with things and coming up with ideas, and you know, is all really important, because otherwise you're not going to attract good talent. But also, you know, in my opinion, like being, you know, kind of taking control over where the resources are going, and you making the call as founder, CEO, I think is very important, because you have the most amount of information and you know the most about the company, and I think you can make ultimately those best decisions.
What do you think, Mark?
Yeah, I'm the president and CFO, and our founder, Arsen Tomsky, is an incredible guy. And I actually agree with the way that you've put it. He's built a strong leadership team, and more and more deep capability in the organization. But what I see him really focus on, it was back to the last question, is values to start with, which when you're when you've got a more dispersed decision-making unit, these values for us about fighting injustice, fairness, freedom of choice in the system, it's incredibly important. You know, I sit in, because of course when there's a pressure on numbers and P&L, people can start to do things that maybe it's what you were referring to, not quite right in the culture. And people catch themselves because of the values that is put in place. What I also see him do very well, of course, on resource allocation, yes, absolutely. But also, where it's incredibly valuable is where we're starting a new business, or we've got a new idea, or where we're stuck and we need to experiment. This is where he gets deeply involved. Because those of us who are sometimes a bit more corporate would be a bit more slow. I remember a few times people coming, okay, we've got this problem, and there's like 30 slides, and it's going to take 6 months. And you know, he'll say, why don't we just do this tomorrow, that the next day, and why don't we find this out by the end of next week? And actually, it manages the speed and the innovation, because that's the thing you can accidentally lose as you get bigger, and you get this kind of more corporate leadership team. So this is what we're always trying to balance, the kind of, yes, the corporate processes when you've got a scale organization like we have matter, but they need to be balanced, and you can't lose the entrepreneurialism, and you need to keep the values that you've got. And that's kind of the balance that we're working through. And for us at the moment, this balance is working. But the founder needs to be hands-on and needs to be in it, because the moment they need to get in the detail, they need to already know everything they need to know.
Yeah, I think for me,
We've got 3 minutes, by the way.
Oh yeah, we're doing so well, by the way. If I, no, I'm kidding. Great moderators. No, I'll only say one thing about this, which is that I think it's attributed to Toby Lutke, which is that I think the leader or the founder has the highest moral authority on the company. So having sort of, there's almost a duty to direct. I think it's really really important to use that power in the most effective way possible. I mean, and obviously, like, it'd be great. And co-founders emerge eventually, right? Like they come later down the line. We have 2 minutes left. My question, maybe you can answer this better, is how do you balance? Because we all have large workforces. People who actually run our business are on bikes or driving cars. How do you balance responsibility to offer low prices, make a lot of money for your company, but also take care of the actual service provider that you have in the fleet or the delivery network?
Absolutely. So for us, it's actually around those core principles. We make sure that 90% of the earnings of the trip price stays with them. We're back to the values. We're very, very sensitive about moving the commission or the take rate. There's freedom of choice for the drivers, so they choose whether they do or whether they don't. It would be very easy to drive efficiency, but we would lose something.
Yes.
Very important. And we've built financial services and other support around the drivers. And this really allows us to get the balance right there, because in the end, it's their choice, whether they choose to work for us or someone else. And I think that kind of keeps us on our toes, I think. And then on the consumer side, it's good value prices. But remember, with us, they can negotiate. So this is the aim.
Amazing. Yeah, okay.
That was my best in 30 seconds.
Well done.
For me, it's like, you can look at spreadsheets, you can look at data. Sometimes you just got to go talk to people.
Yeah.
And I like to actually meet with the drivers and actually talk to them.
Yeah.
And so, I sit down and I talk to them, our drivers who've done the most amount of deliveries, and I ask them, what can we do better? And a lot of times, they give great advice, right? And so one time they were telling me that, we're not really rewarding our top drivers enough, right? And there's other people that are gaming the system, but we're so loyal and we take every delivery and we accept everything. And so we kind of went back to the team and said, actually, how can we come up with some, gamified program for actually incentivizing the best drivers. So, sometimes it's just about talking to people and getting in the details. What about you, for you?
We're almost out of time. This is one thing that we built that I'm very proud of, which is that when a delivery associate is assigned to a delivery, in the most sort of gentle way possible, we say how much how many deliveries this person has made today or in the last 48 hours, and how many tips they've received. We don't disclose what the amount is, but sometimes if the number is low, for a low tipping sort of like culture, it's been very powerful. So we run out of time. Thank you.
Maybe can I just finish with we had an all hands with our whole team. We've been talking about culture and founders, and we had an all hands with the whole team, and our founder finished right at the end with a summary. And normally he summarizes the business. He said to us all, because we're on this big trajectory of growth, he said to us all, let's just remember, the world doesn't need another big technology company. It has lots of them. It needs more companies with a soul. So remember that in everything that you do.
That's really nice.
And I think we should take this to heart.
Amazing. No, that's great.
That's great.
With that, we run out of time. Thank you for being a...
Thank you all. Thanks for being a great audience.
Thank you. And yeah, thank you.
Hello everybody. Welcome to the next session. My name's June Sarpong, and I'm delighted to be chairing this discussion, which is looking at what is the pre-seed pulse. And I will be in dialogue with two men who definitely are at the apex of leading this on this side of the region. So next to me, we have Kees Al-Essa, who is the founding partner and CEO of Vision Ventures, and Kusai Al-Saf, CEO and managing partner of Sedu Capital, and the CEO of the Venture Capital and Private Equity Association. Hello to you both.
Hello.
How are you doing? Wonderful. So we're really going to look at the pre-seed pulse and look at this from the context of the Global South, and in relation to the activity that you see happening and what the excitement is on the ground in terms of the areas that you're both investing in with your funds. So I think what would be wonderful, Kesai, if I said it right? Case?
Yeah.
Case, there you go, look at this. What would be wonderful is if you could start by telling us about Vision Ventures and the areas that you invest in, and really what the future is for what you see with your fund.
Sure. Hello, everyone. Salam alaikum. Thank you for having us.
Salam.
This session. Just a brief about myself. So myself and my partner Haytham, who's somewhere here around, we started a long time ago the first internet service provider in Saudi Arabia, which was back then called SaharaNet. SaharaNet continues to operate until today and focusing on B2B services. In 2016, we founded Vision Ventures out of the need to support entrepreneurs and fill that gap that we found in the market and that we experienced as entrepreneurs in the past. During our earlier days of being entrepreneurs, we've accumulated a lot of experience building things, failing, succeeding sometimes, and we wanted to take that knowledge into new founders in order to accelerate their journey, along with financial support through investment to get them into success much faster.
Yes,
beautiful. So that's a brief about us. So we're an early stage investor, VC, as you said. And focused on
which is the hardest area. Actually, before I come to you, Zach, why did you focus on the hardest part of the investment journey?
Well, I think we looked at it from an area of need. So where is the need? Where is the gap in the market? And I think we found two things. So back then in 2016, again, the activity in the region was very less than it is today.
Okay.
And therefore we saw that need for funding of that scale for the early stages, because again, these countries are like plants. You need to water them, you need to nurture them, support them, so they can really grow into amazing companies that can create value for the country, that can create
jobs and all of that.
Right.
The other thing is support.
Mhm.
We knew early on that entrepreneurs in their early days need support. Founders need support from strategic point of view, from technology point of view. In every aspect, I think each founder is different, but generally speaking, everybody needs support. And that's where we saw how can we add value. That's why we focused and we continue to focus on this area and these stages.
Brilliant. Well, for sure, you will be a fan from the entrepreneurs, because this is the hardest bit. So, Kusta, I want to come to you. Can you tell us more in relation to what you do with Sedu Capital, and then obviously your role as the CEO of the Venture Capital and Private Equity Association?
Certainly.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure to be here. Assalamu alaikum.
Yes.
So when I graduated high school, I've known two things, or I hope to do two things.
Yeah.
I wanted to do my MBA and start my own business,
Mhm.
but I did not know that they will come somewhat together.
Oh.
I discovered the venture capital space when I did my MBA.
Yes.
Two of my professors were angel investors, so I got fascinated by that. I came to the MBA with years of experience in the financial sector, and then saw the excitement in the early stage and the backing fast-growing companies. So that I found myself there, joined one of the earliest funds in Saudi, RTF, invested in many of the successful companies in Saudi today, and co-invested with Qais as well in few companies.
Oh, so you work together as well.
Indeed.
Wonderful.
We work together in multiple capacities. Also, Qais is a board member at the association.
Okay,
Yeah,
of
indeed.
course.
So Sedu is an early stage investor. We invest in seed, pre-seed, and Series A.
Yep.
We mainly focus on B2B enterprise solutions. We try to differentiate ourselves by being an active investor. So we lead investment rounds and we help the founders by creating value with them. And today we're contemplating few ideas for new funds, touching different spaces in the venture landscape.
Yep.
In addition to my role in Sedu Capital as a VC, I got the pleasure and responsibility of being the CEO of the Venture Capital and Private Equity Association,
Yes.
which is an NGO in Saudi.
Yes.
Most of the players in the region are members of that association.
Okay.
The association does three major things. So we lobby for better regulations, we upskill and create value to fund managers in the region, and also we help to connect the ecosystem by creating events around the investment, entrepreneurship, and etc.
Yep.
We've been really successful in changing few of the regulations in Saudi and the region. We have a few of the best training programs for VC investment, PE investment, and debt or venture debt, private debt. It's been an exciting journey for the last few years.
Wow, I can imagine. So, why do you think we're seeing a disconnect between this robust VC fundraising, but also at the same time a slower capital deployment in the global South pre-seed arena? What do you think is causing that? Kusai, do you want
This to me or
to both of you?
So let me just say something. I think it's important to thank Qusay for his role in the ecosystem, frankly speaking.
Yes.
By taking over as a CEO of the VCPA, he has done a lot in making sure the VCPA does its job well. I think he's done an amazing job, and I want to thank him on stage for that.
Wow, shall we? Why not? We can all thank you.
No, I mean it's something really. It's a reality. I want to acknowledge it.
Acknowledge it. Wonderful.
For everyone in the room.
Yes.
I tend to disagree a little bit.
Please, please.
Excuse me.
We like disagreement is good.
But I think I don't agree that there is a slowdown in the pre-seed. At least from our point of view, we don't see this.
Okay.
So we have already in the region invested in over 60 portfolio companies. Some of them are some of the largest unicorns out of the region, such as Sella, Kalo, Gathering, the Chefs, Rain, and many other companies. I think that the region has some of the best opportunity of growth.
Okay.
And I think this is very important for any investor that's looking at the region. The region is gearing up towards what we believe is going to be one of the most active and one of the most impressive regions that will be really one of the centers of innovation in the world.
For the world.
Hopefully within the next few years.
Yeah.
The pace of, I think, adoption we're seeing, the pace of investments that we're seeing, and the maturity of entrepreneurs that we are starting to see is really impressive, and we would love to see more. But again, the early stages were the stages of exploration, testing, and all of that. These entrepreneurs tried some things, some of them succeeded, some of them did not, which is fine. These exited, whether left these companies or exited these companies, and now they are building their second or third. And there are many of those that are building second and third startups in the region, which really is going to give them a lot of experience to really know how to navigate the landscape. So I think, at least from our point of view, we see very good activity. Of course, definitely we want to see more. But I think if we took numbers, up until the mid of year this year, we already surpassed last year's total funding of 2024.
Wow.
Up to September, the funding in the region has already been an all-time high for the years that passed already. So I think the numbers speak for the activity that's in the region. I don't know if Qusay has additional comments.
No, I totally agree, Qais. I think political stability and economical openness had been a driver or a major theme for Saudi, GCC, and surrounding countries. That made us, although these are divided markets, now can be considered in one unified market, as a region. And it's more attractive when Europe slows down. People look elsewhere for opportunities. Hopefully, we'll attract more attention and investment going forward. As Qais mentioned, the number also, he mentioned the amount invested, but also the number of deals also increased since last year. Last year wasn't an easy year, but this year is been fruitful. And year end, I think we're gonna achieve a record high, which is exciting. But it's the dilemma of the early stage investment. We invest in a lot of companies, but it's a funnel. Some of them will disappear along the way. And us as early stage investors, we feel that pain more than anyone else.
Exactly. You do the hard work. So
the founders do the hard work.
Okay, fair, of course.
We're witness to that.
We witness the hard work. So, Qusay, if I could ask you, in terms of the emerging sectors, what do you think are the most investable pre-seed areas? What are the areas that you are getting excited about? And Qais, I'll ask you the same. Is it AI, automation, green tech? Or are there other green shoots that people aren't even realizing is also a next frontier of investing? Because everyone's looking at AI or quantum.
It's been a few years for AI, but certainly what we look at today in SADU mirrors the region's attention. So mainly fintech had been really attracting a lot of investment in the past few years. Logistics had ranked highly also in terms of investments. And those are few of our portfolio companies as well, and the successes in the region. AI is today replacing SaaS. So when we were excited for SaaS for the past few years, I don't think SaaS is gonna be available today without an AI element.
Component.
So we're all investing in AI of some sort. So it's a major theme going forward. I don't think we're going to use AI anymore. It's embedded in everything.
It becomes ubiquitous.
Indeed.
And Qais?
So I think, at least from our point of view, we're, by the way, sector agnostic as a VC. However, of course, every few years we look at the industry, we look at the maturity of the market, the maturity of regulations, and also what consumers and target customers are looking for and what are they ready for. So and let's say in the past few years, one of the most exciting areas of investment was e-commerce.
Yep.
And we saw that, that exciting growth that happened with so many companies. Today, what we're more focused on is really fintech. Again, as Qusay mentioned, we're also interested in B2B SaaS. We're also interested in investing into cybersecurity as well, because we feel the region needs homegrown companies that will provide the security, the cybersecurity needed for the region from within.
Also, Abu Abdullah, some sector we've been really excited, but we couldn't find investable deals. InsurTech.
Agree.
Insurance technology.
Agree.
So did you go outside for that then?
I think we've done a market scan internally. So we identified every player in the region. We talked to a good chunk of them. We couldn't find what we're looking for. So this is an opportunity for me to share with everyone that we're excited for InsurTech. We want to do something. I think the insurance market in Saudi just grown in the last few years by 20% year after year, or 27%. For some reason, it's been behind because of regulations, but lately Saudi separated the regulator, so that opened up the market.
It's opened up the market. So with that in mind, because you both are at such the early stage of investing, and therefore I would have thought have a very different relationship with the entrepreneur community and the founder community, in that so many of them speak amongst themselves. So if somebody has an idea, they're sending them to you guys very early on. Are you in the position to then be able to influence some of the kinds of businesses that are being founded in the region? Are you able to say, as you've just done now, Qusay, that look, this is what we're looking for? Can you bring founders together and say, okay, you guys go work on this for us? Are you incubating ideas as well, or are you solely waiting for the business to come to you?
So let me weigh in on this. Through our experience, we saw that influencing founders to do something they don't want to do
doesn't work.
Results in disaster. We've invested in a company a long time ago called Caramella.
Okay, what did they do?
Caramella was the publishing platform for the region, and it really had an amazing technology platform, amazing team. However, the team did not really focus on how to monetize.
Okay.
And therefore, we tried to push towards monetization. It did not really work. So our policy now is not really to push, is to listen, to understand where the entrepreneurs feel they want to go. And once they are set on that direction, we then see if this is what we want to be part of. But also understand the ecosystem as a whole. So now, as Qusay mentioned, InsurTech is interesting. If someone want to do something adjacent, we want to be there with them. But then later on, you can always introduce them to other players in the market, introduce them to opportunities that will allow them to probably think of the market, but then do the decision they want to do.
Yeah.
So we help them, but we don't move them towards something forcefully, let's say. Because again, it didn't really, and it doesn't really work out well, at least in our experience.
Yeah.
At the early stage, we surround ourselves with smart people, either ex-founders of companies that ceased to exist, or employees of few of the portfolio companies. We host events to attract them to our offices. So we have a quarterly event at SEDU, we call it Founders Day. We bring the founders together, they discuss, they meet each other. Some of these opportunities happen within that meeting or after that meeting. I agree with Qais, you cannot force anyone to do anything they don't want to do, especially founding a specific company. But you can be a sounding board. You can be there, ask them questions, help them think about their next move. Qais, you had a successful story with Kalo before he started Kalo.
Yes.
Please share that story.
Yeah, so with Kalo, Ahmed, the founder, had already founded another company in the region called Mala'ab.
In the food space still?
No, in a different, completely different. It's actually pitch renting and all of that. It's a platform.
Yes.
for pitches and games, soccer or whatever it is, football, basketball, and so on. That did well for some time, but then really plateaued.
Yeah.
Therefore, the founder felt that he cannot continue,
Yeah.
and he came to us and he said, I cannot continue. I want to go to another. I want to do something else. And at that time, we were really not happy with that decision because again, we felt this business can continue.
had legs,
There is potential, but of course he set his mind. He's a person that is after growth.
Yeah.
Grow, and he's really amazing in that aspect. So he went on. He went actually to Silicon Valley. Took like 6 months there, just clearing up his mind, finding ideas, and came back to Saudi, or came back to Bahrain. Actually, he's a Bahraini individual. We had at that time an accelerator, a program, and I called him and I told, "Can you join us to support the entrepreneurs?"
Yes.
And he joined us. And we supported. That time when he brought the ideas, so he brought 2 ideas. One of them was Calo, which is today almost $1 billion company.
Wow.
And another company. And I told him, what do you have with food? Food is not your area. But anyway, whatever idea you set your mind on, we're there. We're investing with you. And we actually put then the first check with them. It was an amazing journey really for Calo. Calo today, as I said, is really all around the region and expanded toward the UK. So one of the things we also did with him is to support him in, for example, finding a co-founder.
Okay.
So we said, we believe...
Was it a co-founder
we
from the
believe
region?
a single founder is good, but another co-founder with you will really help you along the journey. And I have this with my founder, by the way, with Haytham, my partner. Sometimes, again, in the days of Sahara, we really, you go through tough times.
Yeah, you need that person.
As founders, unfortunately, the media portrays founders and entrepreneurs as
lone stars,
millionaires, people who have always dreamy days and no issues. But it's not true. It's filled with hard days. It's filled with we had so many days. I can remember days where we ate cold pizza and slept in the office. But that's
times
the life.
have changed now.
No, it's not. But that's the life of entrepreneurs, and that's what you go through, and that's why they need whatever support that they can have along the way.
So on that note, I think as early stage investors, it is essential for us to be there early.
Yes.
Beside the story of Calo, I've known John, a founder of a serial entrepreneur, did multiple things. I've known him through Dinari Cash. I couldn't invest because I've known that he's gonna face regulation challenges.
Okay.
We kept that friendship for a while.
Yep.
He tried, he couldn't get regulated by the central bank in Saudi, and then he sold the company to Kareem. We kept that relationship ongoing. I tried to be a sounding board, connect him with whoever I can connect him.
Yes.
Today, he co-founded Okta, account receivable collection and financing platform.
Yep.
The company is growing. Through that connection and being open to smart people and keeping a good relationship with smart founders, you get to be early investor in few successful companies.
Fantastic. So with that, before we wrap up, obviously we've spoken primarily about the region. Are there other areas? Are you looking at investing in other countries in the global south where there's this new growth that perhaps the West doesn't really realize is happening?
At least for us, we look at the region, as Qusay said, as one region. And therefore, we don't just invest in Saudi Arabia.
No.
So we do investments in Jordan, in Egypt, and in the GCC. And we did one investment in Tunisia, by the way. So I think the region needs to have these ties and what I call bridges between them in order to achieve its goals.
Impact,
So one of the things we saw in Jordan, for example, is amazing technology talent that's out there that the whole region can tap into. And that's one of the things we also do with our portfolio companies, support through that technology and talent. But Madri,
but to complement that, we also are very open to the Arabic diaspora abroad.
Okay.
Anyone who's from the region, but in the US or the UK.
Yes.
But primarily our focus is on the region.
It's on the region. The region's where it's at. Well, with that in mind, and on that note, will you please put your hands together for KSN Kusai, everybody? Thank you. Thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Brilliant. Okay.
Thank you.